welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to my latest patron, Twad Wazzle, also Jason Hornsby, JMels24, Unamento, M, Iron26, Endless, Goldie McKiernan, my help if I turn my lights out so I can actually read this, Retro Bill, More Books, Fibro Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B. Styles, Troy Shuker, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, David Wayne Foster, and Dank got there in the end. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show. Well, happy 2023 to you all.
Yeah, happy 2023.
Hey, good afternoon, guys.
Good afternoon.
Happy birthday to Black Swan and Kiwi.
Yeah? I wonder what year it will be this year.
I just told you, it's going to be the year of victory. The eyes are going to be opened up.
Do you guys think there'll be something like the Sextant and the Black Swan again for this year?
They've done.
Yes, I do. Do you want to know why? Yes, Nathan, we're really keen to hear your opinion on it. That's
Tell
why I
us
asked.
why.
Because,
go ahead.
Because everything works on a flat Earth. It is flat. So the fact that we're finding out more and more things that necessitate a flat plane to function, be it mapping or navigation or whatever, they're all based on the fact that we are on a flat plane. So there'll be something else that comes up in 2023 that's right under our noses the whole time that requires a flat plane to function because we're on a flat plane, and for whatever reason, mostly because death is probably imminent if you don't treat it that way, it is treated that way. The Earth is treated as flat in any practical application. So there will be new things that come up in 2023. That's why this is such an exciting thing to be doing, in spite of the fact that, you know, we're kept from the eyes of the masses for the most part. It's still going to be the case that we find something else that requires a flat Earth in 2023. I just know it for a fact.
You're going to need a flat Earth for that. So you're saying that's going to come up again somewhere because you're going to need a flat Earth for all of this. I agree.
Yeah, that's what it boils down to. We are on a flat plane, therefore we will find other things that require a flat plane. That's just a fact.
Just makes me think that the minds of the times back then, what were they on? Quaaludes or something? Were they sleeping?
No, we're all indoctrinated, Neil.
I understand that. But I'm so baffled when this whole heliocentric nonsense came in that there was great minds to say, hold on a second. How are you going to have this without containment?
The level of brainwashing for the masses is almost incomprehensible. And there's people out there like Russian Vids and John LeBon and a few others that try and take it apart and explain it for what it is. Just pure propaganda. My wife watches a program called Young Sheldon, which is about this 11-year-old genius who's in college. And he's running rings around the professors. But there's part of the show yesterday that we were watching, and they're claiming to be doing an experiment where they string up a glass ball in a vat of oil and are trying to figure out how they can suspend it equidistant from all the edges. And they come up with the granny's going to knit some I don't know, some synthetic, whatever, nylon together to hold this ball in place so they can shut the doors on it, put a camera on it, and see little light flashes in the camera. And the whole point of this is to show that they can detect solar neutrinos. They're like, oh no, they're just at the end they disclaim that, oh no, this machine wouldn't do that. We're just seeing background radiation. But ultimately, this scaled up by 100 times would be able to show us solar neutrinos. But while they're doing all this crap, they're talking about employing the empirical method and taking part in experiment, all the bullshit that we moan about. And it's just being drip-fed into the masses in the form of television programming and letting them know that putting together some stuff, as long as you've got a white lab coat on and you're a genius, makes it an experiment. And you as the grandmother character can take part in that experiment merely by knitting. You know, and when it finally showed that, I was like, what immediately came to mind was QE talking about, well, some crochet is more scientific than this nonsense. You know, like in this instance, what they're programming the masses into believing is that, you know, what the guy in the white coat at the university says about solar neutrinos is true because he's done an experiment. Here it is. There's some knitted nylon holding a glass ball in a vat of oil in a darkened cupboard with a camera on it. That's your experiment. People nod along. Oh yeah. Very clever stuff. I was like, what the hell? This is why the masses believe the heliocentric model, because they've been indoctrinated not only with the heliocentric model, but with the notions of pseudoscience being empirical. In this case, he even said it at one point, and it was made clear in the script to be said, let's employ the empirical method. You're like, what an outrage. Yes, that's
What's
young
the
Sheldon.
show called? Young
Sheldon.
Sheldon?
Yeah. He's always babbling on about stuff that isn't science and claiming he's a science genius and how his brain is wired for science. You're like, 99% of what you talk about isn't in any way related to science. You know, understanding all the names of stuff on the periodic table, that's not science.
But
Hey, you know
Don't-
what? One
don't-
second.
don't mind me
You know
asking.
that Simon
hold on.
Dan?
Can you hear Jorge? Go ahead, Jorge.
No, I can.
sorry, guys. Didn't Einstein debunk all that?
All of what?
The heliocentric model, Big Bang, formation of stars, mass attracting mass.
Mass attracting mass, he certainly superseded with his Einsteinian fourth-dimensional space-time bending. But I don't know about the other things. Big Bang. How's Einstein debunking the Big Bang?
Because it doesn't, you don't have mass attracting mass, isn't it? And you don't have planets being formed like ours with attraction of water over balls, stuff like that.
Sure, but the uneven distribution of mass causes bending geodesics in space-time, according to Einstein, and those bending geodesics are what give you your gravity, attraction that you can think of as a force but isn't really a force, it's merely things moving along a geodesic in space-time. They're still using it as an explanation. And they've still got, with, as far as I'm aware, I mean, maybe I'm going to be corrected on this, I don't think Einstein in any way excludes the Big Bang nonsense from his assertions. For a start, they came afterwards, as far as I'm aware. Anywho.
Anyhow, yeah.
Maybe
I
we'll
simply
cover
had
it.
the notion that without having mass attracting mass, you couldn't have the Big Bang. I could be wrong.
The whole thing's a contradiction cluster screw to begin with. You know, you've got things expanding out from the Big Bang in line with entropic descriptions, natural laws, and then things moving to coalesce along geodesics in space-time, in violation of natural law. So the whole thing's a complete contradiction anyway. Not Einstein's mathematics, that is. Mostly because you've reified a dimension that doesn't exist into giving you bent lines to move along in a time dimension that we're not experiencing. You know, working outside the convention of time to give you a bent geodesic to move along as you move through the linear experience of time, according to Einstein. I don't see how that excludes Big Bang. And it's Lemaitre that came up with it afterwards anyway, isn't it? I mean, Maybe I'm wrong in terms of the timings.
Oh, yes, of course. Lemaitre, yeah.
I'm no gravity expert. The person to ask is Anthony Riley. He's the one who knows the history and the contradictions far better than I do. But he's lived it. You know, he's gone through due process in governmental terms for attempting to get some of the rhetoric that's taught to school children incorrectly. You know, he's trying to get that addressed through the system. So his understanding of the history of gravitational, what's the word? Superseding. I don't know what the word is, but for that process, Anthony is, you know, he's second to none. I can't think of anybody who knows more about it and can cite stuff like that. You know, he's got it all at his fingertips. So yeah, I could be wrong. Maybe there is something within Einstein that debunks the Big Bang, and Anthony will come along and go, yeah, of course it doesn't work because of this, obviously. But he could be right.
No worries, no worries.
To go back to programming, how do you undo bad programming?
What?
How do you undo bad programming?
That's very difficult. It's very difficult to show somebody that they've been duped. Bad programming is just saying, look, you've watched, let's say, Young Sheldon, and as of your education, it's affirmed something that you misunderstood to be correct, which is to say that science, the empirical method, in quotes, isn't actually being employed when they show you these nonsense pseudoscience technical demonstrations. That's not science, right? Well, at that point, the person, especially if they're preaching it or reiterating it to you as a justification for a heliocentric belief they have, they're not going to want to concede that they've just got it wrong. It's really, really easy to dupe somebody. It's much, much harder to convince them they've been duped.
The reason why, and the answer I was looking for, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you undo it by correct programming, right? Like, I'm going to use a computer for an analogy, right? If there's like a virus or a bug on you, you might completely wipe your computer and reprogram it completely, right?
No, you can't do that with a person,
And
unfortunately.
well, hold on, let me finish now. Let me go along. It is the same as with a person, because how do I say? Like, for example, even with me, when I first heard about like the landings, right? The first time I heard it, like it was like a big hurdle to get over it, right? Like I need to sit some time on that seed until it produced the fruit thereof, and then I got it, and then it was clear. So the whole thing, going back to this programming thing, is if we just keep seeding these things to people, right? Basically programming them with the truth, eventually it's going to kick in. It's like it has the same effect. If you can convince people of a lie by telling a lie 1,000 times, it's the same thing with the truth, is it not?
No. Psychologically, you can get somebody to be convinced that the messenger's lying to you regardless of what they say, and regardless of your inability to overcome the messenger's argument. So there's a poison in the well fallacy that's employed. So if you, at the moment, I'm quite fascinated with the religion of Scientology and how it sort of gets memberships and gets people to join the cult. And in that regard, they pre-poison you against people who are going to tell you that you're incorrect or that these notions are wrong, and they teach you techniques to overcome those problems, those issues. So while it's not so explicit in terms of heliocentrism, the diluted version of it is done to you through conditioning against flat Earth. The concept, the people, anything about it. So even if you're Mr. Ignorant and have not the slightest clue of how your heliocentric model works or how the flat Earth may or may not work, you've already got the idea that that's wrong and it's to be ridiculed regardless of how educated you are in the subject. And if you're in ignorance about the subject, you'll immediately appeal to the authority that told you to appeal to them in this regard. You know, so someone saying, well, you know, we've got boats that go over the horizon. Well, no, we don't. You know, if we did, we'd have a limitation of view at this distance in the maths, and we can show that it's beyond that. So it's definitely not Earth curve with boats falling over it. You go, oh, right, I don't know what to say. there's going to be people who are smarter than you, Dumbo, flat earther, that understand this better than you and your wrong information that you're trying to convince me with, because you're a dumb flat earther. Just because you've outsmarted me here and now doesn't mean I'm wrong. That's their attitude.
But that's programming. That's a programmed response.
Yeah. And you're going to get the program response to somebody trying to undo the programming when it's been programmed into you to stop listening, to brace against information that goes against your rhetoric.
Right. And you said something else that was a key word, teaching, how they were taught. Again, that's programming. Like when we go to school and we learn, even let's just say something basic like learning to read, which is legit, it's still programming. It's drilled into you.
Oh, but
you don't just like explain it once and they got it.
There's many arms that they use in a scattergun approach to overcome things that we can undo about their rhetoric. So if you manage to overcome their claim that they might lean on as proof of a globe in terms of logic, they'll come back at you with a consensus opinion. And if you overcome their consensus opinion with mathematical justification, they'll come back at you with a pseudoscience claim. And if you overcome their pseudoscience claim, they'll again appeal to a different authority, like a NASA. If you overcome their NASA claim, they'll call you an idiot. And so it goes on. So there's got many different arms that they can pull from whenever one arm fails. So they put out a little proof, see you overcome it and show it how it's wrong. They just appeal to the next one, scattergun you. If they want to stay in the bondage that they've been bred into, what are you going to do with those people? Well, if they had decent information on a regular basis, yes, you're probably right, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but that's the reason and rhyme behind having the affirmation of the bias that we should be ridiculed propped up in the narrative when people search for the subject. So even if they could find decent information about how the Earth wasn't as they've been taught, if what they come across in the first instance is a reaffirmation that they need to ridicule A, the flat Earth, and B, the flat Earth believers, then that's what they will do moving forward. It props it up and re-strengthens it, ready for them to go forth for the rest of their lives knowing that it isn't flat. And should they come across anybody, what will be propped up in their mind? Oh yeah, I looked this into, and I found that it was wrong and that and stuff. That's what you get from them. The dumbos that can't string a sentence together. Because to them, researching it is finding some anti-flat Earth numpty that's been immediately presented to them. Now, if we were immediately presented to them, time and time and time again, if they came across the subject and were trying to figure out if they were right or wrong about their belief, then yeah, there's a chance that over time, maybe it would take a couple of years with some of them, they'd figure out how wrong they were. But much better just prop up the programming in the negative against us as the first search result, which is what we have to suffer.
Well, you touched on some, like another aspect too, like the choice aspect. There's that too. But then you said you went back to like, yeah, if they do want to learn and they are legit, then them hearing over and over again, you basically did say that it will work. Just kind of like, I'll use me and your show, for example, right? The scientific method. I had to hear it a few times before it became like a lot more clear and I really understood it, right? Because like the first few times you were just kind of planting seeds, right? So I was getting some foundations about it. And then afterwards, after hearing it again, having those foundations in place now I could get a little bit deeper into it, right? And that came by hearing more about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you've got to hear things over and over again. But when you're talking about having somebody with a computer being wiped, I was fortunate enough, if you like, that I was ignorant of all of the scientific nonsense that's been indoctrinated into people at higher education levels. So when QE crossed my path, he was like, this person's worthy of giving the information as a blank canvas, as he described it. You know, he could have been a lot more rude and just said, yeah, you're completely ignorant of this stuff, aren't you? Great. I can tell you all about it without you having preconceived notions of what science isn't. So that's lucky. But most people...
That's exactly how I feel about like the church and Christianity. Like I've avoided, I've missed out on all the programming from like the churches and stuff like that.
Right.
So I was kind of like a clean vessel when like the right teacher came in front of me and he's just like, okay, I don't have to get this junk out of you. I can just put good programming into you, so to say.
Exactly.
Kind of like how you said it with you and QB.
So with a blank hard drive, metaphorically speaking, yes, it's a lot easier to write stuff without all the garbage to get out of the way. And in terms of a person, you can't get that all out of the way. It's still there in me and everyone in this panel because we've all been indoctrinated with it. So there's certain aspects of it that will always remain hardwired. There's nothing you can do about it. So as a result, you work around those hardwired programming aspects and attempt to deprogram others. But it's really, really hard when they're non-stop bombarded with it, especially your average normie who's watching TV all day. That's
Right, they got to unplug from that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's certain events in my life that have occurred that I know have assisted me in relinquishing myself of that programming. One of them was leaving home at a very early age and not being able to afford stuff like TV licenses and not wanting the TV license man to come round and, take away my TV. So what did I do? Well, rather than pay the 15 quid a month, I removed the tuner board from my VCR and bought a monitor and ran it in such a fashion that you could not pick up TV via any of the equipment that I had. And rather than spending 15 quid, if I ever got the 15 quid that I couldn't afford, I'd buy a video and watch a film and watch it over and over again until I built up a reasonable film collection. But never had TV. Yeah, I had all the programming from movies, but because of working as a performing arts and technical theatre student, I understood the suspension of disbelief because I was being trained in it. Now, you don't necessarily have that direct one-for-one correlation between this is how you alienate your audience, this is how you encompass them and bring them into your ideas and your notion that you're trying to put across to them in the theatrical sense. When you've got that information, it's one-to-one with a movie or something on stage. It is not immediately obvious that it's one-to-one with media. Now, I did also do media studies to a much more limited extent at college, but there's no way you're going to have someone in the media course being told what you're creating when you read your news script to the audience is a suspension of disbelief. Because as far as they're concerned, they're being taught how to become reporters. They're not taught about spin. They're taught about reporting. They're taught about media production, media presentation. Not spin doctoring. I don't know if that would be in a political course. But again, all of these different overlaps that eventually will be incorporated into the production that is media in general, movies, TV, radio, internet, you name it. All of them have every facet of these different aspects incorporated into them from many different people, all at once, making sure that the end product that comes out has been refined to serve a purpose. Entertainment is right low on the list, I assure you. Yeah, that's not necessarily the main goal of any of this. Top of the list, making money. Controlling people. That's top of the list. Now, if you say, oh, well, which one comes first? They're the same thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
while controlling them, they're making money. While they're indoctrinating people through the media and TV, they're making money.
Sure, and the advertising's indoctrinating people in how they should think about what they should spend their money on, etc. And the propaganda behind certain products and what they're manufactured with and who that benefits and the trade involved in getting those products to you. All of those things incorporate into the media that you're presented with. So there's lots of different fingers in the pie. So when you look at it from the outside and recognise the ingredients for the pie that is media, you go, ugh. That's a nasty looking mix of stuff. Ew. Do I want to consume that? I'm thinking no. Most people gobble it down without even realise that they're eating it. It's like there was a tube straight into them and they don't even notice. Anyway.
Yeah, I was
people...
kind of thinking about that the past few days about how people don't even notice. Like how you phrased it and stuff like that.
Yeah. Now that metaphorical tube of garbage that's the metaphorical pie of media that's piped into people without them noticing, when you come across Flat Earth and you're that normie, with a constant stream of nonsense and you happen to stumble across this subject that we happen to be in, you won't necessarily find us. But when you stumble into it, they're like, oh, you need a new pipe. You need to replace the media pipe with a different pipe. No worries. Yeah, we've got just take this pipe, insert this pipe, and we'll force feed you with all sorts of other nonsense. What we've previously called the Feast of Nonsense, where you get taught about refracted horizons and ice walls and the geometry of Earth and the reification fallacy of models, all of that sort of stuff. Oh, we'll pipe that straight into you instead. You need a change in pipe? You got it covered.
I gotta find this thing for you, Nathan. I was watching a show called The Offer, and it's all about how The Godfather was being made. A lot of the stuff that the producers and the directors and everybody went through. But in one scene, this guy Al Ruddy, he's producing The Godfather. He meets an artist, a girl, and they're just talking about, sets and Hollywood and props. And out of nowhere, she goes, "Well, look at the moon. How did they get there? How did they?" It's so strange how they're talking about that, and then they bring up the moon. So it's like they're trying to say to you that this crap didn't happen. It was all done through Hollywood. I'm going to find it for you and dig it out. It's like a 30-second clip.
Okay.
And see if you can play it.
You might be reading.
But to get back on that pipe thing, I want to quickly add something that he said about that. You're right. You're being fed a pipe whether you like it or not. Now, that pipe could be the truth, or that pipe could be other nonsense. Right, Nathan?
There is no truth pipe. What you find out if you remove all pipes is you find out how bloody ignorant you are, how little you know about the world. But that's got two outcomes. One is, "Oh no, quick, find me another pipe." That's the one reaction. The other reaction is, "Oh my God, I know nothing. Maybe I can find it out for myself." That means like scavenging around for berries in the field of knowledge, if you want to call it that way. God, we're onto some weird metaphors today. Anyway.
Hold on. Is that not knowing? You're saying you're finding out that you know nothing of the world. I think it's opposite. I think you're finding out how dark these people that are in charge are.
Yeah, I knew all that anyway. I knew that before Flat Earth. So, I kind of figured that out when I was really, really young. And that's never really been a thing that I've had to concern myself with since. And it was partially why I didn't mind getting rid of the TV back when I was 16. I'd already figured out that the news was all lies and it was all just packed with nonsense. So I didn't care. I was like, well, what am I missing? EastEnders. Who cares?
And I kind of want to touch up on what you said about how did you word it? Like we don't know which is the truth pipe, or how did you say it?
That if you remove all the pipes, so you're not being fed anything in terms of this is how the world is, right? So let's take a different example. You unplug the pipe and you've disconnected from all the media nonsense. You've figured out that most of it's lies or spin or propaganda of some description. And you go, right, well, I need to find out what the world is then. So you start looking and you come across a guru. Someone who's selling you ether and free energy and what the world's been hiding from you, or Tartaria. Well, that's just a different pipe. Now, it's a pretty low-grade, low-quality, unrefined pipe, but it's still just a pipe that you're inserting and just gobbling down whatever that person's researched, aren't you?
Right.
Right. Well, what's the alternative is no pipe, right? So then you start.
No. That doesn't exist. It's not possible. You're always going to be fed something. This is why it's so important that
but you can choose what you want, right?
Right. That's the thing. But when you're choosing, you're the arbiter of truth. See, that's the problem with that. This is why I say
why is that problem? I don't understand why that's a problem.
Well, let me explain it. Because if you're the arbiter of truth, you're just a man, right? You're like your arguments or your ideas can be fallacious. You can miss one thing and be off 1 degree, and then throughout life, that 1 degree can turn out to be like a massive, you know what I mean, off course. And you might not even know it because it was so slight. It got in so slight. And this happens to us all the time. And this is why. Well, I was going to bring it back to Christianity, obviously. This is why I set my sails to just God's word, just what he says and let him correct me and his word correct me. And in that way, how do I put it? I'm
Yeah,
not
but
the one
that's
that's
no
not,
good either.
I'm not the one that's picking and choosing what's true. I'm just letting God determine what's true.
Okay,
Because
how
I
do you
set my faith.
know though? How do you
Hold on.
know that God's telling you?
I'm talking about his word. You know,
I understand his word, but your whole
and his word
teaching on
hold on, Neil.
the firmament is way off. So what are you saying? You're hearing from
Hold on,
God and
Neil.
we're not?
Hold on, Neil. Let's not derail into doctrines and stuff like that. God's word says, I will send you a helper, right? And he will guide you into all truth, right? He will bring to remembrance what I said. So that's in God's word, isn't it?
Pertaining to the man Jesus Christ, who he was and what his purpose was. That's what the comforter is. God the Holy Ghost.
All right, but just to keep this, this conversation a bit more simple, like to where I was going, not to derail it a little bit. I understand what you're saying, Neil. But to keep it on point is if I just set my sails to what God's word says about things, right? Then I'm letting God be the arbiter of truth, not me be the arbiter of truth. Does that make sense, Nathan?
No, because it's the arbiter of truth in what you believe. Brian may not believe the same thing.
Uh, Nathan, do you get what I'm saying?
I don't have a horse in this race.
Well, if somebody else is determining the truth for you, they're the arbiter of truth, not you. It's pretty simple.
No,
question,
that's not
right?
what I mean. I mean, you're saying God is the arbiter of your truth. I'm like, whatever. I'm not going to argue this with you.
Right, but that means I'm not picking and choosing then, right? I'm just choosing what he believes and how he not he believes, but how you know what I'm trying to say.
No, that's why I'm telling you not to appeal to me.
Okay.
He lost
All right.
me too.
Hello, everyone. Well,
Hey,
just,
Neil.
Right.
Hey, Brian, sorry.
Hey, Nathan. Hey, Neil. Anyway, just a question. Sorry. I mean, I just listened in just a second ago. You said you don't want to appeal to what he believes, but if you truly believe that it's the word of God, then it's not a belief he has. It would be the truth. God would never not speak the truth. Am I picking you up wrong, or
You are right.
I'm not?
You are right.
No, he's not. He's not talking about God speaking anything. You're talking about you trusting in your interpretation of what you believe to be God's word spoken through you, to you, without... There's no external God speaking for us to refer to here. This isn't the word of the Bible that we're talking about. You're talking about you're expressing how you will go through life and say, I just accept that God will show me the truth. Or, I don't really follow how you're explaining. I'm just doing my best to paraphrase.
Well,
but that's something I can't relate to.
This is what I'm trying to point out to you guys. If you guys are picking and choosing, which pipe to pick, and you're not sticking to one, you're basically you're formulating your own truth in a sense, because you're deciding what's the truth. As long as you're deciding what's the truth, you're going to be picking and choosing, and guess what? Along that picking and choosing, you're going to pick the wrong pipe every now and then, right?
No, not if your standards are of such a high standard that you reject things that don't have logical validity attached. So when it comes to people saying, well, what's the sun, for instance? I'll go, well, I don't know. Well, does that mean that I accept something on the side of verging towards belief and that would meet the standards that you've just laid down? I'd say no. I just say I don't know. But if there's something that's empirically proven, the sun is above this particular location at this particular time, I go, okay, I'd be a fool to not accept that. Well, how does that form a belief? It doesn't.
Well, let me tell you that it goes back to programming again, because no matter what, you cannot have no pipe. So you're always going to be surrounded by hearing something and hearing something and hearing something.
No.
And that
when I say pipe,
whether you like it or not.
There's a difference between looking at a tree and just accepting it for what it is, right? A life form, the growing leaves, versus accepting somebody who explains the origin of the life of the tree, or the energy of the life of the tree, or however you want to somehow explain how something that you just experience in life has come to be. That would be a pipe of nonsense. right? That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about just going around in life and generally accepting things as they are. We've been pre-conditioned and programmed to do the opposite of that, to not accept things as they are. So I don't see any belief pipe that I have to have inserted into me in metaphor. What belief pipe? What you tell me what I'm believing in, and when you get to one, I'll just concede immediately.
And I had like deja vu with Slick James Johnson. Anyways,
Now, I'm not being Slick James Johnson. I'm not saying I don't have any beliefs, but when we get to something that isn't fundamentally important to the world that we're experiencing, i.e. the topic of flat earth debate, if we don't get to that point with you saying that I've got a belief and the beliefs I have are moot or inconsequential, then I'll just be like, well, no, I don't accept what you're saying. That I don't have to have any faith in anything. What do I have to have faith in?
but correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't that Slick James stick? So to say?
Yeah, but
No.
he took it. Yeah, but yes, it was. But he took it to the point of extremes where you couldn't pin him down on anything that he had a belief about.
Right.
Anything at all. Now, with the minor things, the inconsequential things that I just have to accept on faith because it's easier to get on with the day because it's not that important to me, then you may find some of those things. And I'm not going to say, oh no, you're wrong. I don't believe that. I won't do that. That's what Slick would have done. So by comparison, no, I'm not doing that. But you can't just claim that I'm being like Slick because I say you take things on faith according to you, but you're saying, well, so do you. You're just not led by God, which is where you're going with this.
I didn't say you were like Slick James Johnson. I just said you gave me those vibes, and I asked you to clarify, to give me your, what you're saying about it. So I didn't necessarily say you are like Slick James, but I just got those vibes.
No,
And you
fine.
clarified a bit further, and I thank you for that.
Fine, but when I say we don't have any beliefs, what I mean is I don't necessarily have to substitute in a 3,000 mile sun for a 93 million mile sun as a substitute belief without evidence, that is. That there may be other things that are less important to this subject that I have as a belief. You haven't named any. What beliefs do you have? Maybe you can enlighten us on what you believe in. Because I don't know that you could justify anything that you could say as being a belief based on the arena I know you find yourself in. Unless you're going to say... Go on.
I set myself to God's word. So if it's in God's word, I believe it. That's it. Simple. If you can show me in God's word something, then I'll believe it. Simple.
But there's loads of nonsense in the Bible that you wouldn't want to believe in. You want to what? Stoning homosexuals?
No, that's not true, Nathan. I'm with Righteous on that. If it's in the Word of God, I follow it.
Okay, but I'm sure a skeptic of the Bible could find you plenty of examples that you would cringe at.
You can find out if somebody's not sticking to God's word, and if you just pay attention if they're sticking to God's word or not, you can easily spot when they add something that's not there. Well, not easily. You gotta train yourself to spot these things, right? You got to be trained to notice when people add what's not there. This stuff is done all the time. We call it hoodwinking or whatever you want to call it, right?
Sure, but I'm sure
you got to be able to spot it.
Without too much effort, I could find something in Hebrew that described bad things happening to good people under the watchful eye of your own Lord and Savior. No problem.
That was before people were born again, right?
No. And show me where bad things happen to good people, Nathan. Show me where. You're going to say God is wrong in that?
You're having me on.
You're going to get like hold on. You're going to get like Jaron now and say God flooded the earth and there was little babies on the earth. I mean, and it was old people on the earth. Oh my goodness.
No, you can, if you want, compare what I'm doing in this example to what Jaron generally does and has as his premise, right? No, well, yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, that's what he does. That's what I'm doing now. So that's just where the conversation's gone. Doesn't mean I'm Jaron. Doesn't mean I'm anti-Christian. Just means that we're entering into a discussion that lends itself to me becoming the skeptic. Don't suddenly tar me with some brush of some anti-Christian just because I'm playing devil's advocate. Not even devil's advocate. I don't have a horse in this race.
But that's the thing. If you go through it, we'll spot where an interpretation or a spin is added onto it.
Right, well, I've got no
See,
reason. I don't hate God. I don't hate Jesus. I don't hate Christians. I don't hate the Bible. So I've got no motivation to poo-poo anything you say or disagree, other than to hold the negative position for this discussion to take place. That's for you mainly, Neil, as you've accused me of being Jaren. Obviously been watching a bit of P-Brain recently.
I missed that first part because I'm doing something. But listen, we weren't there at that time. Who are we to say God is wrong or God is right in that situation?
Well, you can take it on faith based on the Bible and every word of it being true. Isn't that the discussion? Isn't that what we're talking about?
That's what I'm saying.
Did I just lose 15
We weren't
minutes?
there.
What's going on?
Right, but we're
Happy
getting
New Year, guys.
Happy New Year, Adam.
Adam, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Adam.
Hey, bro. Little treat for you, Nate.
Happy New Year.
Keep it brief.
Requested last night from Mindshock if we could maybe review his video, not have to interrupt as much.
Mind shot.
Really nice interview with him and a Mensa guy discussing flat Earth and honest answers. I asked because it's worth letting it play for 5 minutes and then commenting on each
In other words,
bit.
is Mind Shock? I don't know how I've ended up subscribed to this guy. It's the guy with the weird voice changer, right?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
who you're talking about? My
I
God.
just commented him last night and asked if I could maybe play a bit.
How is he not getting banned, right? Have you
Dunno.
seen the subjects he covers?
Well, listen to how he covers it. It's brilliant, and that's what I wanted to highlight. Yeah.
Okay, we'll get into that. I have paid attention to that. I'm glad you're here, Adam, because clearly we're of like mind immediately, and we're on the same. Yeah, yes, we'll definitely discuss this. I like Mind Shock, and he's new. And if he outgrows me, I will fucking hate him. Let's just make that clear.
Well, in the comments, someone says maybe next time try asking this guy the housekeeping questions from FED. So it's
cool. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Neil, Righteous Force, Brian's Logic, Adam Meakin, Arwin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome, one and all.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Happy New Year!
Hey, Happy New Year.
Welcome back.
Yes, thank you so much for ruining this to ever be a rerun, because it dates it. But there we go. Yes, Happy New Year. Yeah, we are in the New Year.
Happy birthday to the Black Swan and the QE.
Let's just not mention the date or time again, because then it makes the videos that little bit more timeless. But as we are literally live right now, who cares? It is 2023, 1st of January. Is it 1st? It's 2nd today, isn't it? Yeah, my watch says 2nd.
Second.
Yep, 2nd of January.
Yes,
so we're well into
You
it.
had a very long weekend, Nathan, but you do look very rested, though. on camera.
Rested? Oh, not at all. No. I spent the Christmas period with my family, and my dad's dying, so it's not very much fun for me at the moment. But there we go. If you look rested, then I'm pleased to hear it. It's not exactly the case. Such is life, though. Let's do a bit of housekeeping, as we don't want to be on a downer for the show. But we don't also want to be dating it, so let's not necessarily mention that it's New Year anymore. But we'll get it all out of the way. Let's get it all out of our system. Happy New Year, Arwin, Righteous, Neil, Brian, Adam, and everyone in Discord. Good to be in 2023.
That's the wishes.
Any New Year's resolutions? We will get this out of our systems before we do housekeeping.
Hold on. I got a question. When that Black Swan first came out, that was 1st Jan 2020, correct?
Come again?
It was January 1st, 2020, the Black Swan, correct?
Yes, 3 years ago.
Okay, and then people took, like they said, how long it would take before people would catch on. Well, this is going to be 3 years, right?
Yeah.
And still people are not getting it?
Yeah, but the upper echelons of numpties seem to be starting to cotton on. I only have one example, if I'm honest, and it's Ruhif. So in Brian's logic's very concise and very detailed Black Swan explanation, with all of the rebuttals tucked in nicely. Good video, by the way, Brian. In there, because of the consistency of Brian's dissemination of the Black Swan, right at the end of the 3rd year it'd been out, Ruhiv left a comment essentially saying, so can I not have a bent line to a bent Earth? And obviously I just ripped into him in about 25 comments underneath, calling him in a total idiot, which he is. So what bent tangent then was basically the sentiment. I won't go through every single comment, but that was the sentiment, right? So what bent tangent? You can't have a straight line in geometry meeting the curve for your maths. It must be bent, therefore breaking that tangent line. It's no longer a geometric measurement anymore for your assertion in the maths with a tangent. You know, the penny's starting to drop. Maybe he'll just shut down and go into denial again. Who cares? He's asking the question, can I have a bent line to a bent Earth? No, you can't. It's not a geometric assertion in your maths when it's got a tangent line to a curved edge. That's what tangent is. That's what your maths is. It's only taken 3 years for you to get it, Ruhif. But there you go. I hope that answers your question, Neil.
Thanks, Nathan. Yeah, I think what Ruhif's comment was, Brian, are you stating that you can't do geometry on a refracted horizon? Or with I think that was something.
Right.
It didn't have to be or something.
You can't use a bent tangent. Yeah, that's what he was basically saying, wasn't it, Brian?
I was gifted from Rufy over Christmas, Brian. He's reviewed your video. 17 minutes and 30. This is a great one. Brian says, you'd need to know the... Oh, no, sorry. He's addressing you. Brian, you'd need to know the actual size of the moon to even claim it has an angular size. Dear God, Brian, this is the notch you've got them in.
Yeah, exactly. They're telling us how their own model falls apart, but because they're positioning it to us, they don't realise how bad of annihilation they've just declared in regards to their own assertions. It is amusing, and it is very aptly put by Adam. They're in knots.
Yeah, because, well, I mean, I've never seen the moon in any other size than I see it all the time. And the same with the sun or the celestials. So giving them an angular size is kind of cheating because you don't know what their actual size is. Maybe their actual size is their angular size because we don't know what the things are. We don't know how they function, what their composition is. They're an absolute mystery. So although you can't say the moon and the sun have a 0.5 of a degree of an angular size, you can say that and you can measure that, but you can't show their actual size. And nobody on Earth has ever seen their actual size. So you don't know if their angular size is their actual size or if they even have what you could call a size.
That's my point. We only have an angular size for the luminaries. So it's them that insist on a real size and that there's some kind of proportionality between angular size. Well, it's exactly the same. it is that same angular size calculator of how the luminaries work. You know, it's and that's what I'm saying. You've got them in knots. They're now having to attack and point out the weaknesses in their own model. So if he's having a go at you, you need to know the actual size. No, we don't. We can measure the angular size. That's all anybody's ever done.
And it's not useful for actual navigation. All you need to know is where it's above. What part of the land is it situated above at what given time? Because if you know that, you can work out where you are. Do you need to know the height? No. Do you need to know the size? No. Do you need to know where it's above at a given time? Yes. And we do. That's useful and practically applied in navigation. So that's what we lean on when we're talking about flat earth proofs. So our positive assertion is you need a flat earth to get an elevation angle measurement. So you can calculate distance to the GP. So you can draw a circle around it and say, I'm sat somewhere on that circle. That's all you're doing. But you need a flat earth to do it. Now that's a positive assertion that uses a luminary, but doesn't need its height or size. Just needs to know where it's above at a given time. That's it. So you can do this. Go outside tonight if the stars are out and look above you. Now there may be a star directly above your head. Now this example falls apart if it's not necessarily a navigation star, but there's a lot of them, so there's a good chance. But just for the example, you look up and there's a star directly above your position. That's useful. You are at that star's GP, the ground position of the star, at that time. Obviously, if you wait an hour, it's no longer above you, it's above somewhere else. But if that's the star you're picking, you know where it is above at a given time, and you can verify it. Very, very, very useful. Okay? However, by contrast, I'm nearly there. By contrast, the heliocentric model has a need for a size of the Earth as a sphere with a radius value, and that radius value is needed to apply to other luminaries to give you distances and sizes by way of Kepler's third law scaling values. So their assertions need to be proven. They're a positive claim. A positive claim that we don't have to defend. We don't need to use the horizon for anything other than establishing a horizontal. If you're making that positive claim, then it's up to you to defend it. But as for it being explained for why things disappear at the horizon, I don't care. What's that? Well, you need to defend. No, I don't. What's that? You have got a positive claim about how boats prove Earth's a sphere when they go over the horizon that you claim is a sphere edge. Well, then you better get on with proving that, which I can defend and defeat and debunk. I don't need to make any positive claims about it beyond what it's practically used for, establishing a horizontal baseline for measuring angles with. In line with the title, as it suggests. Horizon. Horizontal. Useful for that purpose. That's it. That's all I use it for. Now, I will defend that claim because it's used and I can show it. But I don't have any other claims about the horizon to defend. And it is the case with most heliocentric claims that they affirm their claim in the detriment to you. In other words, they get you, the flat earther, to start defending why you can explain how things disappear in the horizon badly, so they can go on to tell you how they can do it well with their maths, if it works. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
Sorry, Nathan. I thought you were stopping it when I came in there. I was going to say that a lot of people, there's people out there, and they think this is some kind of celestial navigation, is some kind of globe magic. You know, I mean, they don't seem to understand how a star can be at your zenith at a particular time, and how that can be documented constantly. Because like the movement of the celestials is a constant cycle. So it's just a documentation, a data collection of that cycle over probably since Babylonian times. I don't know how long ago that was, but it's a long time ago, supposedly. So, I mean, we are going back a long time with a collection of data. So they know via time wherever celestial body you can pick that are of the navigation of the stars, they know where that star or whatever is going to be at any given time of the year. It's just that, Even if it was just hundreds of years of data, that would be enough. But it's probably thousands of years of data, if you know what I mean. It's like, it's not magic. It's just a collection of data. They know right now where such and such a star is sitting over the Earth, because they had to know for so long to travel the oceans, you know, and just to navigate in general, you know, even on land. So, I mean, I don't, like, GPS is using the celestials. GPS uses the nautical almanac. Do you know what I mean?
It's amazing.
Yeah, GPS, like, it is the original GPS. And I don't, rather than going into what GPS is and claims about it, excuse me, Globe claims about it, sorry, or whatever, the point is, part of your GPS unit is an inbuilt and update. They say they update it, but there's not the update. It's like an inbuilt celestial nautical almanac. So, you know what I mean? When you're using a GPS unit, you're using celestial navigation, and you don't even realize it.
Yeah,
Not
that's one of the globe proofs.
Let Brian make the main point again.
I'm
The
sorry.
conclusion is very strong. What he's saying is GPS proves Earth's flat. That's what he's basically saying. So I want him to stress that before it's like, well, there's other points to add on, Neil. We will get to you, though. Go ahead, Brian. Just round out your point again, because it's so important.
Yeah.
The Cartesian
Thank you,
system.
Nathan.
Exactly. Cartesian coordinates.
That's where I'm going to next. It's like, even though the GPS uses signals and that from signal sources, the point is, it's using not only celestial navigation, which requires a horizontal plane, but it's also using 2 and 3-dimensional Cartesian coordinates. So GPS proves the Earth is a plane and not a sphere. You know, because of the coordinates it has to use, not only celestial navigation, but the coordinates it uses. Both of those systems require parallel zeniths. So there's no way around that. I'm finished. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a video to cover once Neil's put his 2 penny worth in. It's going to be by Mindshock, who's my God, this guy's massively grown. He's already bigger than me. He's the same size as me, Adam. We were talking about this in the pre-show, in case you're wondering.
Nah, you're bigger.
Nah, this guy's the same size as me. Basically the same size as me.
Yeah, but we don't know how many people you have. We don't really have a good number on it. Come on.
I take back what
And
I
all
said
I
in the
wanted
pre-show.
to say is,
I
wanted to say to Brian was that they used that to try and make it like celestial navigation proves the globe. GPS. That was one of the main things when I first got into the flat earth was, GPS proves that it's a globe. And they still do it today. No matter what you say, they still do it.
Yeah, surface dwellers.
Well,
That go, GPS, what's the G stand for? Global. Proof. Really? That's the level of proof you need. Okay, go in peace. In R you trust.
well, I stated when I first started bringing up GPS a couple of years ago in presentations that the G in GPS is more correctly attributed to geodetic, because all the geodetic mapping, which is all ordnance survey, 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional Cartesian mapping, all of that is what they use for GPS. So geodetic positioning system will be a far more apt description of the acronym. You know,
Just interesting, guys, is it's still owned by the US government.
yeah, there's a couple of different versions. There's a Russian, Chinese, there's a European, Japanese, I think, version. They're all the same thing, though. It's all the same carry on. It just depends on how good their technology is, but it's all the same thing. And it originally started with surveying back in 1994, but in 1995 into 1996, the U.S. military came out and claimed that they owned it, and that they were releasing this secret technology, but it had been developed prior to that in surveying, but they hid that part in 1993, 94. And I know that for certain because my mother's partner is a retired surveyor, and he retired in 1993. And he said just as he retired in 1993, they were bringing in GPS in 1993, and that was in Ireland. There's no way that the US military in 95 or 96 suddenly released this top secret information when it was being used in Ireland in 1993. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, right. We're going to go on to this mind shock. So, Adam, should we just play it out and see how we get on? Is there
Yeah, I've posted the thing because I didn't want to treat it the same necessarily as a critiquing vid, because it's a really good exemplar.
Okay. You're telling me take it easy on him?
Well,
Totally.
listen. The interest. That's what I'm saying. Listen to it, because he's not making a claim. He certainly makes sure he's not presenting himself as a flat earther, but he puts the arguments to this Mensa guy in a way for the guy to address and deal with. And it's very good towards the end, particularly as they're discussing what's acceptable evidence.
Okay.
So,
Well, we've got a very limited audience as per usual. 67 people watching, which is appalling, really. And it's just jumped up 71, 76. Okay, it's jumping up. Hopefully we can get to 100 people watching while we critique Mindshock, who is a YouTuber I'm subscribed to. I may or may not have watched this video. I can't remember. But let's give him a thumbs up. But yeah, go and subscribe to him. I'll just share his link again, actually. It was put in the chat a few moments ago, but I will just do it again. So you've got a link to go to him and subscribe so he can outgrow me, the bastard. There we go. So go and subscribe to Mindshock today. And yeah, let's have a
that's
look.
good news, though, isn't it? I know Neil is defending, but look at that. Look at that growth. This is somebody that's not being held back, and he's just shot up. So, but listen to what's being discussed in here. It reminded me of the flat Earth debate, and even in
if
one
you
of
like
the questions,
audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to Mindshock. This is your host, Bruce McGuire. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. Make sure you have your device allowances to let those...
Personally, no, not yet. I haven't.
What were your first impressions? Did you think it was just complete lunacy, or did you have no thoughts at all? Your reactions to things are always so intriguing.
It was a great party. Yeah. Well, I've got a 5-star Galahad with...
Because you don't seem to get triggered by anything at all, so that's always interesting.
Again, if I have no exact information at the time, I mean, I can't...
But was your initial response just complete hogwash, or intrigue? I mean, obviously it wasn't intriguing enough for you to look into it, unless you're just that busy and you did want to look into it and you just never did. Or did you think they were just joking? I mean, because that was usually, I think that's most people's impressions, because when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, these people are doing some comedy, and it's kind of funny. So I thought it was kind of entertaining in a way.
I can't lie, I might have looked into it if I did have a bit more time, but I just thought it was an interesting theory to hear.
So you didn't think they were just...
So it's the guy that just spoke that said he thought it was an interesting theory, the Mensa guy.
yeah. But see, this is the first point. You see, he's not come in and gone, "Yeah, Mr. Mensa, you know the Earth's flat." He said that he's played to him before. He said, "You're an intelligent man. You must have heard about flat Earth. You must have looked into it just to remove it from your mind." To say his technique is really cool.
You thought they were being sincere? You didn't think they were joking around or trolling?
From them, yes, I believe they were sincere at the time.
Okay.
It's fine by me because, as to say, for me, that theory did not hurt me in any way at that time. So.
Okay, so I think having a high level IQ individual dissect flat Earth is helpful, because usually we see people like Neil deGrasse Tyson or these highly triggered, indoctrinated individuals. They oppose it so greatly because, once again, Upton Sinclair once said, it's very difficult to get a man to understand something which his paycheck depends on him not understanding.
Good that he qualified that, because I was about to interrupt it and stopped and hesitated because of Adam's comments before, and I'm glad I didn't. So he's just buttering the guy up by comparing him to somebody obviously intelligent like Neil deGrasse Tyson and saying, this guy's paycheck depends on it, but he's seemingly elevated this Mensa guy above Neil deGrasse Tyson and then demeaned the position of Tyson by saying no, he only supports it because his paycheck depends on it. It was very clever. I agree, Adam.
It's the first bit though, mate. The first bit is why didn't it bother you? Why didn't it bother you? Why weren't you offended by it? And that's the point, you see. He's got no eggs in the game. He's just moved past it because it's not directly affecting his paycheck. And he doesn't want to challenge it, but there's nothing glaring to the Mensa guy for him to want to go there. Like I say, you're right. He's buttering him up nice to get his honest appraisal. This guy's honest all the way through. I think he's really cool.
The Mensa guy?
Yeah. Genuine. Cool. Even when we get to scientific method, he's just cool.
We're just about to hit 100 people watching, so I don't have to keep shouting out. So it's wonderful. Very warm welcome to all of you who've just joined us. Please smash the share button. Share the show far and wide. Hopefully you'll learn something as you're here. If you haven't shared it already, please share it now. If you have shared it, thank you very much indeed for sharing. That's why we've got 100 people watching, or just under, and I'm sure it'll go over. And hopefully we're going to breach the 120 mark that we reached just before the new year. So we'll see. Please share the show.
So how sure are you in the heliocentric model? Let's start with that.
The heliocentric model, even still that, although I do believe, because that is how I was raised, to believe in that understanding, which was proposed to me, that I do wonder and question to a degree. And after all, personally, I've never gone to space to see the various planets, the stars, or to truly understand the distance and the gravity of it all with my own.
I don't know if that's the host clinking stuff in the background off mute. Tisk, tisk. In any event. Okay, so first issue, the guy's talking about a fairly valid flat Earth concept from 2015, which is actually originated from Math Powerland, which is you will never get to go to space. But asserting that you won't get to go to space is, in my opinion, in 2023, a misnomer, because it affirms the notion that there is actually a space to go to, but just leaves you with the notion, like this guy has got from Mensa, that I just haven't been there. So I haven't been to the region to confirm what the Earth looks like. It's like there is no region to go to be getting confirmations of what the Earth looks like. He just doesn't know that. So he's got a contemplation that has a heliocentric bias built in. And the questioning of his heliocentric bias is still lingering with the heliocentric bias as he questions it. I haven't been to space. Okay, so if we compare and contrast that to the religious faith of Narnians, who believe in Narnia and Aslan and the Wicked Witch, well, those people, if they're contrastable and comparable to heliocentric believers, in this case the Mensa believer, if I try and snap out the guy or girl who's believing in Narnia by saying, no, you questioning the validity of Narnia simply based on the fact that you haven't been through the wardrobe means that you still think that you can go through a wardrobe to Narnia, but only question it because you haven't yet been. Or it isn't possible for you to go because you haven't got the right coat or wardrobe to go through. But you're still under the misapprehension that Narnia is real, but you're only questioning because you haven't yet been to Narnia. Well, you're never going to get to go to Narnia either way. So long as you've got the ideas and notions that Narnia is a place you can go to, that's good enough for a heliocentric faith to linger in your brain, as is the case with the Mensa guy. His lingering ideas that he hasn't yet been to space are trying to overcome cognitively the fact that there isn't a space to go to. He just doesn't yet know that. Go ahead. Was that Adam?
Yeah, that's what he's doing now. He's not so much challenging it. He's asking him what are his positives as to why the wardrobe in Narnia is real. He's asking what underpins that belief. And he starts out by saying, well, that's what I was taught as a kid. He's now just going to, I think, get him to substantiate why he believes it. He's not taking it to that level straight away. Why would you believe in that? Because it's the first floor. He's asking him, first of all, to give his clear validations for his belief, which is, I think, is clever.
Quick shout out to Godzilla37, who says, I support this channel as it pursues the truth. The moment anyone behaves as though they are the ultimate arbiter of truth, I'm out. Still here, by the way. That is about the best compliment you could possibly give us, Godzilla. Thank you very, very much for your support, more than the super chat, although I do appreciate the money. Thank you very much indeed.
I don't know about him sometimes.
I'm sure Godzilla's seen our critique of his... I said it was playing devil's advocate and making sure we kept frosty in terms of assessing all of the other claims, in this case from Bev, which is what, if you are unaware of our critique of a super chat that was left in this show by Godzilla about 10 days ago, versus some what QE described as chat scan comments, where basically Godzilla was expressing his affirmation of the notions that were put forth by Bev in regards to the use of an angle. Now, I read that to be him keeping us on our toes by making sure that the argument as it's presented to him as an audience member of Bev or a member of Bev's show, making sure that it's refined in the way it's been refined as it's presented to us, and that we'll pay attention to it to the point where he's happy to spend money to make sure that we critique it in the way it's been presented to be critiqued, or just been presented. Now, for that, I thank Godzilla. Now, I know that both Neil and QE were of a very different attitude, and QE was even of the opinion that he's taken on Superman's cape. I personally, and hopefully that came across in the discussion, didn't necessarily view it that way. So you're welcome to your opinions. But based on the last super chat from Godzilla, which I'll read again, I support this channel as it pursues the truth. The moment anyone behaves as though they are the ultimate arbiter of truth, I'm out. So in other words, I assume he's a member of the show, so I'm assuming he's watched us critique his super chats. Which, again, I can't remember who it was, but someone commented at the time that, yeah, just because you've spent money on it doesn't mean it's not going to get critiqued. Well, that's true. Unfortunately, in the past, it has cost me, literally financially cost me, considerable amounts of money in the past when we have done that. In other words, unfortunately, yeah, you can support the show with cash, but if the comment that comes along with it's wrong, unfortunately, that's still going to be open to subjective objection from everybody in the panel. That's just how it is here, right? You can't have one rule for one person because they've come and presented a faith in the globe, and then have another rule for another person because they're kind of on our side, but they seem to be critiquing us a little bit, but with money. Therefore, they're okay. They're okay. We'll just kind of ignore it and brush past it and thank them for the money and then move on. No, that's definitely not the attitude we take here. As you can probably tell from this 5-minute interlude. Anyway, Neil, did you want to add something else on that?
Yeah, because he's also lined up with Whitson too, so he's a good guy. I like him. He's with us, but I'm just a little leery of him lately.
Would you rather he didn't understand the full all-encompassing arguments from the people we are ultimately detractors of? Would you rather he was ignorant or just on their side? I think he's the perfect person in that regard.
Like, I took that last comment as he thinks that we're saying that we're the arbiters of all truth.
No, he's saying the opposite of that. He's not saying that at all.
The opposite, Neil. And
Maybe I'm hearing it wrong.
Even as long as it's polite, yeah, it's not just ad hom. People's opinions are opinions, and they're worth hearing. You know, and Gordzilla's done a few. He's done it through super chats, which means it gets up there and read out. They all seem to be pertinent points. Whether you agree with his viewpoint is kind of irrelevant. He seems a genuine guy that has his own view, and he's approaching it. And that last super chat was a lot more convincing that he is on that path than the one I saw sent from Glenn. But I heard it in a positive light, Neil. I didn't see that as a threat. That's what we do here. Even down to the point of critiquing people, as Nathan said, that's funding him. And I would be the same. I would be out if this turned into, no, you got to shut up and not comment. Yeah, gone. I'd make a big noise and leave. These are the standards we set ourselves here.
That's why we're graced with your presence.
I agree with that.
I say it with a smile, but that wasn't exactly a fun time for Adam. But that is the principles that you have to employ, and sometimes you cut loose of places and people because of it. And it's hard. I'm not going to deny that some people who, on a social level, I like or liked, and you cut them loose because, ultimately speaking, they are fundamentally opposed to a principle that you stand by. And in this case, we're at the right cutting edge of that, and it's deemed the most provoking word you can have next to it, truth. Right? So we're on a dangerous knife edge sometimes. And if those relationships come into place because of this pursuit, you can't really make an exception and go, all right, well, that person's not really into truth, but they're a good laugh. Or, I really like them, though. It's like, that's how you end up getting burned. And I have, and I'm sure people who are watching have been burnt by people like that if they make the exception for and then just end up getting betrayed. I'm sure it happens to all of us. Anyway, this side note based on somebody who's being generous and actually giving me money. Can we move on?
Nice.
Do you believe it's required? Do you think empiricism should be the default standard for anyone believing something instead of taking it on blind faith as...
Oh man, this guy. I mean, if the Mensa guy doesn't see through this makes me feel a little bit dirty, Adam.
It's not dirty. This is the quality of what he's doing. And
quality?
No.
Only because if this was with anybody other than a Mensa, what do you call it? A Mensa student, a Mensa member, Mensa member. There you go. That's what I was fishing for. If this was from anybody else but a Mensa member, I'd go, oh, kudos. You know, what you're doing is you're giving him a singular outcome choice where the opposing choice is already presented to you in such a negative light that you'd be a fool to choose it. Do you like valid empiricism that's obviously true and couldn't be denied? Or do you just prefer some blind faith bollocks that nobody could possibly be? Which do you think he's going to pick? Now, if I wasn't, if I was the Mensa guy, I'd be rolling my eyes. But you think this is genius? Okay.
I don't think the Mensa guy is. I don't think just going through these principles early on to get agreement is very useful later on. And certainly with academic intellectuals, once he's affirmed it in this conversation, he's not going to backtrack.
Does he know this guy? Maybe he's already assessed the guy's vanity level. We'll see. But what I do like, let's just give it some positive shit sandwich. He did actually get into the wrangle-dangle of empiricism nice and early on. That I like.
As gospel truth just because other humans have said it was so.
I honestly do believe that a person should take their own personal responsibility in doing research if they're honestly going to believe or advocate something before they try to preach it to others.
Now, here's where I'm at with all of this flat Earth insanity. Why are people so desperate to cling to a theory of any kind? Why not put logic at the forefront? Why not put the methodology itself at the forefront instead of jumping to a conclusion or assumption or picking a side just for the sake of picking a side? Because what I find the most hilarious is that flat earthers usually mop the floor with everyone in any kind of debate. But what I find it even more funny is if the heliocentric model is true, it's that the people defending the heliocentric model, even if that's the true model, they're just so illogical and emotionally triggered by anyone questioning their faith-based belief system. Even
just a couple of minor critiques. I know Adam's kind of suggested that I don't do this and just let it run its course, but theories, I know the guy from Mensa used the word, maybe he's just going along to get along in this regard, but theories are the aftermath of experimentation, which are based on a logical progression. That logical progression is the empirical method when actualized, and the method includes the logic of the scientific method, if A then B, or if A not B. So you are following logic to get to the empiricism, to get to the theory, which you're kind of decrying when you go, well, is it just about these theories? Now, again, I appreciate that you could argue, oh, no, I meant the colloquial use of the word theory, just some general vague idea of things in the colloquial sense. However, you've also prefaced this with the word empiricism to the Mensa guy, so you can't get away with that. Sorry, Adam, to critique him on such a high standard, but so far this guy's pretty sharp. I'm just trying to sharpen him further, and it already seems like he's 90% sharpened, right?
Totally. That level's fine. Whether he's just engaging with him is all I'd say here. It's not to say the critique's not literally valid, but he's certainly not been picked up by the Mensa guy.
No, that yeah, I'm glad you reminded me. Glad we're of like mind this morning. It seems. Anyway, yes, the Mensa guy didn't pick up on it, or didn't seem to be verbally rolling his eyes when he said that. Although it's hard to tell. I'll have to get used to the voice changer in terms of picking up on certain intonations from him and the guest, which are a bit more difficult with this voice change thing going on. But there we go. That's life.
Even if the faith, what they have faith in, happens to be true.
Which is sad. But from what I feel or believe is that most people usually are afraid of the unknown or anything that they can't explain away.
Or threatens their existence in some way.
Never a true word spoken, both of you.
Exactly. And again, more than likely too, even though people may be taught or to believe a certain thing, even if they were given certain information, a portion of people might just take it for what it is, forget all the factual knowledge behind it, and just say, well, that is what it is. So there's no need to
Yeah, most people are just very, very dogmatic. But all right, so let's get into a little bit of the nitty gritty. So, how much evidence do you think should be required for someone to believe in theory A, the heliocentric model, versus theory B, a flat Earth geocentric model?
I'm not sure to say how much. I mean, the quality, undoubtedly, I would feel that that would carry great weight.
Okay, so well, what specifically, like, let's say it was possible to prove one way or the other right now. What would you be looking for? Like, if the heliocentric model is definitively true, what are the pieces of evidence, whether or not there's a lot of them or just a few pieces with high quality pieces?
To me, Adam, this just sounds like he's leading him into the false dichotomies and the begging the question fallacies.
Not
for him. I don't.
He's asking him now to define how would he can go away now magically. What's going to confirm either viewpoint is what he's asking now, ball or flat. What would you do to define it? So he's just putting the ball in his court and just asking him what are his standards.
Yeah, but the way he led him, I just object to, because he was like, if we just accept that the heliocentric model is true, what standard of evidence would there be required, in your opinion, to prove it? And then if I put it against by comparison, a flat Earth geocentric model. So I just read that back as, in shorthand, if we beg the question of a sphere, how do you stack up the false dichotomy of sphere versus flat Earth? That's what he's actually asked him, isn't it?
I would say he's more asking what are your standards to approach this. Okay, we're gonna settle the argument.
Yeah,
what's gonna settle it?
No, and that bit I like. I like the fact that what he's trying to egg him on to do is, I get that you might find yourself doing this, and you probably find an example of me doing it if you looked. But he's leading him. I get that, and he's leading him well. He's going, what are the standards of evidence you think we need then? But instead, he's gone, what are the standards of evidence if we beg the question of a sphere Earth being true, and then stack it up in false dichotomy with the flat Earth geocentric model? He didn't need that. That kind of riles me.
You remember when I was in Nottingham and we had that couple, and they got straight into, and this is what he's trying to avoid, debate first. Just get your bullets lined up. So when I was discussing with them first, and I went to gas pressure, first thing I did was discuss how molecules behave. So that once we'd agreed that early on, when we got to their Carmen line, they were done. And that's when that lass got a bit narky because she realised she was done. He's doing the same thing here. He's getting all his ducks lined up first. Whether there's even a need to go in, you'll see. But
okay, I'll concede and say fine. Just for
it's more like a street talk to me, where you're not wanting to rage first of all. You're not wanting to, like I say, you're not wanting to prove flat Earth. You're wanting them. You just want to lead them down the path to apply their own logical thinking and standards that they've previously claimed they have to this problem now.
Okay,
it's like a nice setup to me.
I don't think so. No, I'm glad we disagree, because this is all about presentation. And in the pre-show, we were talking about, well, how's the best way to clean the hard drive of someone's brain in order to wipe away the indoctrination and present them with new information. Well, when it comes to offering up the pre-laid out feast of nonsense, begging the question and false dichotomy fallacies that are given to us by our opponents, it to me seems wrong to offer him up as an invite to get the conversation started. If Anthony was here, and if Anthony's watching, and I didn't say what I'm saying now, he'd be pissed because he'd be hearing the echoes of me go, "Don't beg that question for him, Anthony. What are you doing? Let them do it. Then pull them apart based on it." But here, he's cut off his route to pulling apart a false dichotomy or a begging the question fallacy because he's preemptively offered both to get the conversation started. So, for the sake of letting it progress, I'm not going to dwell on it any further than we have. We do disagree on this, though. Adam.
Yeah.
Can I say something on it before you press play?
You can, but I'll just read out a couple of super chats before you do. So, Michael Khan's gifted a membership, so if someone wants to pick up that membership, thank you very much, Michael Khan. Really appreciate it. And it also encourages the Globers to join as members and offer. We've got one or two that have picked up free memberships off of the contributors to the show. In this case, Michael Khan. Thank you very much. And then they've offered their detracted comments when they've been watching the show before it's released, which is great. So if you're a Glowbed and you want a free membership, snap it up now. Also, Godzilla37, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, 2 years, Neil, and I still like you. That cuts deeper than it first meets the eye. Anyway, go ahead, Brian. Thank you for the super chats.
Thank you. Thanks, Nathan. I'll try and be brief with it. Yeah, well, I would have started off the conversation asking this guy, because I don't rate the whole Mensa thing myself personally, but I would have started off asking him about how would he define solid logic and intellect? What examples would he give if he was asked that by any random person, which I would be, how he would define that? And I'd start off at that intellectual level, like how would he define that? Someone defined a good use of logic and intellect. And that's where I would have started with. And then I would have started leading into, well, what about this thing or that thing? The way we have people who will state that the Earth is a globe and whatever. I would have gone that direction. But I would have started with logic and I would have started with, intellect and how he defined that.
Would you not say by...
Then he's...
I was just going to say, would you not say by you doing that, you would come across as overly aggressive?
Well, that wouldn't be my intent. My intent would be that whatever he'd say at that point, that if he goes into any belief, because belief is not part of logic or intellect, if he goes into any belief later on to do with the heliocentric model, I would say, well, that contradicts what you said about intellect and logic. And that would be my point. That would be where I'd be working off of. So he is a Mensa member. I'm bringing logic and intellect into it at the start. So whatever he says, I would hold him to later on. Thank you.
Any other comments this far?
What's required for the heliocentric model? Like if somebody put a gun to your head and said, you must state a model, you're allowed to demand evidences, but you have to tell us the conclusion. So what evidences would you demand to believe in the heliocentric globe model definitively?
We've got breaking news.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And a fair question to put to somebody that knows it is heliocentric in their viewpoint, especially to an academic, because it stretches their mind, doesn't it? They're actually, they think they've got all this, then suddenly, you get that and he's already just said how much he likes empiricism and stuff. So now he's at the point where he likes empiricism and he's got to, hopefully he's going to try and do something empirical to prove his viewpoint. He's got that gun to his head and he can demand the answer. So they're the things. So the world's his oyster now, isn't it? He can have any proof he wants. So it's now up to him to empirically put something on the table, which I think is a fantastic question.
Probably information acquired by a dependable device, let's say, that might cut through the entire Earth, almost in a 360 fashion, to really express the fact that it is indeed a globe.
His answer is to say, which is perfectly reasonable, if I had it laid out on a plate in front of me, dissected in half, I'd be pretty sure at that point. Yeah, that's about as empirical as you can get. I'd say that's a good answer.
Is, again, pictures from outer space, you'll picture it out as a circle more likely for the Earth. But again,
you're aware of the flat earther argument that those pictures are all doctored.
that I did hear.
Yeah, so, which, again, whether they're doctored or not, I mean, our photos... So here's the biggest problem I have with that argument by the people that just, they believe, they treat NASA like a church, and anything NASA puts out, or anybody that works for NASA, they treat them as a priest. So you have the Church of NASA with the priests of NASA, like Neil deGrasse Tyson. All these people, they're just preaching information and delivering information. They're delivering data. But here's the thing. The flat earthers are asserting that NASA is complicit in a worldwide conspiracy of governments and space agencies to hide the shape of the Earth. So that's the assertion. Now, we're not going to say whether it's true or not. So if we're putting them on trial, like if you're putting a serial killer on trial, you're...
Okay, I don't know if I fully
Just let
agree
him finish the analogy.
Okay.
This is
saying this serial killer is
Riley.
guilty. And these serial killers' buddies in other countries, they're guilty. So this network of serial killers are guilty. Someone who is on the side of the... So whether you're on the side of the serial killers or not, are you going to accept the pictures that the serial killers provide as an alibi? Because we're not saying, like, maybe they're doctored, maybe they're not, but are you going to accept the information from that party, or do you need neutral third parties to remain objective?
I prefer neutral third parties that will remain objective. And even with pictures, I can't fully place faith in those or like to that as a sole defining evidence. I mean, again, as you said, pictures could be docked.
See there, honest chat. He's made a great example, and the guy said, "Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd want third party stuff to validate this." Yeah, well, within his analogy, well, that's taken away his first thought that the pictures, because he went empirical. Yeah, brilliant. Can we cut it in half though? No. So he's still struggling for an example, but in this case, like, he's put a perfectly valid point, and the guy's agreed. Yeah, I can't accept pictures from NASA as my underlying proof. He's back to square one again.
Why not? Right, I don't like any of this. Why not?
No, I don't.
I don't like that. So if NASA had pictures of Earth from space, I just rephrase that. If Edmund had pictures of Aslan in Narnia, then I would accept that Narnia is real and that Aslan was real if he had pictures of Aslan in Narnia.
No,
why wouldn't I accept it?
No, it's the opposite to that. He's saying, and he's got the guy to agree that even though, yeah, he's got pictures from Narnia, he accepts that those pictures don't have validity in the sense of proof because they're from the defense and they're only provided by the defense. There are no independent third parties of either the wardrobe or Narnia. There's only people that are defending the murderers that have got these pictures and have produced these pictures. So he gets the Mensa guy to accept that that's not an acceptable level of proof, which I think is a big step when you challenge, because often the first rebuttal, we've got pictures from space. It's already there in a very succinct way, got the guy to say, I, as the ball earther, have to say, no, that's not sufficient evidence. What's next then for him?
I appreciate that it's got him to agree, and I'm surprised how conciliatory the guy is. But even if I was in front of the Mindshot guy, I wouldn't necessarily be agreeing with his posing of this question in that regard. And if I was playing devil's advocate, I would say, yeah, why wouldn't you accept a picture? Because we haven't got to the point where we're questioning the place the picture has come from. So based on the example I gave you with Edmund, what you're saying to refute that, Adam, is that, well, Edmund's got a vested interest in Narnia sales because he's selling tickets to the pictures that he's taking. So therefore, you can't really accept that. And that's the standard that he's laid down. And, yeah, okay, I'll have to go along with that and agree with you. And therefore, obviously, we're going to progress in a second. But it's only because...
honest.
But it's only because at the point that he said, well, you've only got these people who are NASA that everybody in the flat earth understands are just propaganda merchants of the opposing view, and all they're there for is to sell the opposing view. Therefore, you wouldn't accept pictures from them. That's how he's phrased it. And me, I'd go, you see this picture on screen now? right? Mensa and flat Earth, right? You see the black bit? That's claimed to be a 10 to the minus 17 Tor vacuum. That's space. That's where they're saying they're going to get the pictures. Well,
Exactly.
all of the gas that's all of these high pressure clouds in the picture are gas at pressure not expanding into the sky vacuum. Therefore, there's no way to go and get these pictures. But he's not in any way tackled that. So the only reason we're rejecting the pictures at this point is on the weak-ass point that they're just the opposition and they're punting this view. So based on the fact that they're punting a globe Earth religion, we're going to reject the pictures? That's not good enough standard to reject them. Good enough standard is the place that they're saying this black area is a vacuum, and that isn't true.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not about what standard you. This is what I'm saying. What he's done is he's got the bloke with his own standards to reject it. You don't have, he's not had to convince him through any other method, no secondary argument. He's got the gent to intellectually say, yeah, if I'm being honest here and I'm applying standards of proof, then no, that's not a sufficient standard. He's already got him to do the hard work for him. It's gone. Pictures will not be used now. There's no side arguments.
His outcome's fine. Yeah, fine. Yeah. He's got there.
Yeah, but he's done it in a way that's not. He's not had an argument yet. All he's done is asked him some questions and asked him to apply his standards, and the guy's got rid of it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
in time. I
mean, say something, Nathan?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
well, I would agree with you, Nathan, that I wouldn't bring up NASA. I'd just bring up purely the fundamentals of gas behavior and entropy. But that's what I would be bringing up, and not NASA, because what actually happened was the McCoy mind shock. There's two things I have an issue with. He's been bringing up the word model a lot and speaking about models and using the word models. I don't like that. There isn't a model for what we're talking about. There is a heliocentric model, not a flat Earth model, right? But besides that, he actually used a stereotyping fallacy. He said, all flat earthers say, or the flat earthers say, blah, 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 NASA. Like, no, right? We don't say that. We ask about entropy. That's what's important. And I reckon the guy, the Mensa guy, was just not going to say, well, pictures are pretty good evidence, because there might be enough evidence for him, but he doesn't want to say that because he knows that he'll be challenged on the pictures. So he might be just smart enough just to stay out of getting into that situation or that kind of a debate.
Exactly. Yes, I agree.
That's how I view it.
He just seems like he's being agreeable and being led, and he's being happy to be led. That's what it seems like from the Mensa guy. That's why we're being more critical of the Mindshot guy, which probably isn't the outcome he was hoping for. The Mindshot guy, when he agreed to let you do this, Adam, was the Eyes of Death. Did you want to add something? You were flashing away. I don't know if you wanted to add something. Or should I announce you more dramatically? Eyes of Death. Did you want to add something?
Sorry, I'm still trying to figure out how to get the Bluetooth headset to work on this thing.
That's all right. Far less dramatic than I was hoping for, but no, hopefully you found the mute button now, which it seems you have.
Discord doesn't like me.
All good. It's very good to have you here, though. Dramatic name and all.
My name is actually one of my jobs. I was in the military.
Okay.
I'd like to know what post he did. What in the military?
He took their eyes after they died, obviously.
It's because I was the one that saw everyone die, because I was the one doing the killing. Wasn't a very not very publicized type of MOS job that I did.
What side of the fence? Just before I argue with you and potentially piss you off where I don't want to. What side of the fence do you sit on? Just so we know.
I'm a flat earther.
Praise be to Jesus.
Usually when they do the killing, they don't speak about it. But that's okay. I believe
What was that?
Careful, Neil. Careful.
Usually the guys who do the killing don't speak about it.
That's in the mafia, Neil, not the army.
No, I had uncles that served World War II. I had uncles that served in Nam, never spoke about it.
I voice verified him. He checks out. He's all right.
It's very difficult for people to understand.
Sorry, was that your version of "You Weren't There, Man"?
What was that?
Was that your version of "You weren't there, man"? You wouldn't know.
No, it's just a lot of people don't understand the act of killing another human.
Definitely not. That's not something I've been privileged to and wouldn't want to be.
You have those that feel that it's their right or they feel justified in doing it, and then they have those like me that feel like we were a freaking pawn in the game, and we murdered for a lie.
Yeah, I understand that. And the thing about it is, it's like one of those experiences that you can't explain it to somebody because it's unexplainable, the feeling, until you've actually done it.
I just
that
say,
makes...
yeah, braver men than I, and thank you for your service is all I can ever say. For whatever the motivation, that's kind of irrelevant. You went there, look after you and yours, and say brave men that get mugged off, but that's history.
Yeah, like regardless of what political forces were behind it and trickery, if your intention was correct, then, you know what I mean, the intention was right.
Well, you're gullible, huh?
No, but you just don't disrespect people because of what they're made to do.
Pretty weird note to round the show out on, but there we go. That's the way it goes sometimes on Flat Earth Debate. But with that, I'm going to say first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and Jeepers panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Yeah, you've got some fucking chump on the internet now questioning his integrity. You shouldn't do those sorts of things. Just let the thing slide. You didn't need comment anyway.
I know somebody's full of shit when I hear it, Adam.
You don't know, Neil, do you? So, frankly, respectfully, you're the one that's full of shit right now, just in case he isn't.
Adam, anyone who does the killing, don't you talk about it. He'll come on and say, I'm the one who did the killing.
You're back.
Oh, shit.
You're back to the same point of unsubstantiated.
Forget it. You can be as gullible as you want.
Didn't say I was gullible.
The guy didn't just offer up the information like some bullshitter would. He had a strange name, and I asked him for the origin, and he hesitantly and tentatively gave us the reason for his screen name, which he was asked for. What's the issue?
Neil, if he provided pictures of his killing, would you accept them to be valid?
Right. What you want?
No.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah,
Well, I can tell you that you would never find any of them.
Look, the guy's got
I only said that because the show.
a clearly deep screen name, right? And that's it. He's been asked. He's told us. Thank you for telling us.
I just wanted to know if he was an Air Force pilot. That's what I wanted to know. That's what I wanted to know. No, okay, that's fine. Do you know any Air Force
I was
pilots?
Army.
Oh, okay. Do you know any Air Force pilots?
I was the one that told the Air Force where to drop their bombs.
Okay, it was just specifically Air Force pilots I'm looking to speak to. If you know any who are on our side or interested in speaking, I would like to speak with them. Thank you.
No, most of them are sworn to secrecy as it is.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. I'm having a very difficult
The same
time
with
getting
me,
some
as I have a lot of stuff I'm not allowed to talk about.
Yeah, that's the often the issue with militaries. Yeah.
Arimouth.
Thank you.
Non-disclosure agreements.
We got any lifesavers on the panel?
What's a lifesaver?
Oh,
One of those
someone who
menthol
saved
mints.
someone's life? Yeah, I respect lifesavers a lot more than life takers. I think the stories are generally better anyway.
I don't think I can ascribe any sort of grandiose life-saving attributes to the show. So from me, it's a no. Sorry.
So what you're saying
Can I
is
just
a
say,
lifesaver isn't an
good
arrogant
morning.
prick?
A lifesaver
Good
is a
morning,
what?
everybody.
Hi,
Good morning,
Chop.
Chocolate.
Morning.
Happy New Year, bro.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year
Hero
to you.
complexes?
One more time, Eyes of Death.
Lifesavers have hero complexes.
Really?
I don't know. I don't know if I'd agree
The
with that.
majority of them do.
Majority of people wouldn't step in as a hero if something was going on. They'd suffer the bystander effect and just watch people burn, metaphorically speaking. Other people don't suffer the bystander effect and do step in, but you're saying that they've got god complexes or hero complexes.
Well, you only truly hear about the stories of the good stuff. You don't hear the bad, the same as when you hear about how there's bad cops, but you don't hear about good cops.
I don't know if I agree with that either. There's plenty of...
Yeah, that's a pretty fair analogy. I mean, let's be honest. There's good and bad in every part of the workforce or whatever. There was a paramedic came along here to take away my father, and he would have been considered a life-saving type person who would have saved people's lives from overdoses and heart attacks on the spot, different things like that, you know, but he went to kick my cat. But I nearly became a life taker at that point.
Yeah.
Because I tell you, I would have absolutely. I'm not going to go into.
I'm surprised
there we
that
go.
my panel members.
So yeah, he might save someone's life, but he'll kick your cat. Well, he didn't kick my cat,
tried to kick
but he
your
was
cat?
about to. Well, there's a couple of years ago, he was about to, and he stopped. Let's just say.
Imagine being a grown man, you got to kick a cat.
Yeah, and a big pair of boots on him too. Yeah, proper pair of kickers. You know. But there you go. Like, he's a lifesaver. He's a great guy, except for he doesn't mind kicking some little animal. It's like, no, I don't care about him. So there you go.
The real deal would have said, "My name is my name. Let's leave it at that." And I stand by that. And I'm surprised that my panel.
Well, you don't have to worry about hurting my feelings.
I asked him. This is weird, right? Some guy on Twitch has recently made or caught the attention of a load of other gamer/YouTube streamers, right? And what they're criticizing him for is the fact that this guy on Twitch has got this like forum rules for his chat stream. So in the same way on the live stream here on YouTube, we have a chat stream going up. It's the same on Twitch, right? But he has certain rules that he says, and one of his rules, this guy, whose name I don't know, was you don't come into the chat and be like a total downer. So you can't come in and say, "Oh, my mom died. I'm not very happy at the moment. I'm in a bad place." That's banned according to his chat rules, right? Anyway, one of his, I don't know how it works on Twitch, but I think the people who can chat in your chat stream is like members here. It'd be like a member-only chat stream. I think that's how it works. So therefore, if you're in the chat, you're a contributor or a supporter of his Twitch stream. So this person comes into the chat and hadn't been there for several months, and it's like, "Hey, where you been? You've been gone for ages." And the person's like, "Oh, my dad died, or my mom died. I can't remember which." And the person who wrote the message then realised that was obviously a bit of a downer, so just wrote an extra line or two saying, "I haven't been around for a while. I'm not just saying that in irony. That is actually the case. That's why I haven't been around." And the guy, the Twitch streamer, just laid into her, guilt-tripped her, and told her, reminded her of the rules, that you're not supposed to be bringing the chat down. And the person responded, "Is like, you asked me where I'd been and why I hadn't been around, and I told you." He's like, "Well, you're only allowed to give one or two responses. You're either allowed to say, 'I'm fine,' or 'yeah, I'll get by.' That's your only two responses when someone asks you how you are." That was the attitude he took. Now, obviously, this guy's very different to someone who's just lost an immediate member of their family. In terms of, it's the polar opposite. He's explaining his negative aspects to his name, deeply held that they seem to be, and sincere he sounds. I've got to be honest, Neil. Regardless, right? I'd be in the same boat if I just were like, "Why are you telling us this? Yeah, because I asked him. You know what I mean? What would you want?
No, he's not going to hurt my feelings.
Is Neil's Tourette's acting up again? Is that what's going on? what's going on?
Anywho, it's good to have you. All of you. I love you all.
Well, the reason that I joined was your topic of this morning, but I did not get the chance to be on the live stream because I have technical issues, and I still do, but I'm trying to communicate through the speaker of the phone. So I'll have to figure it out later.
Yeah, I blame Neil for that, for you not getting into the live stream. But what was it that was actually the subject? Because you obviously haven't actually spoken on something specific.
GPS and navigation.
Go ahead. What was it you wanted to add, or did you just want to be in on the conversation?
Well, it's just the wordplay that's in most of the educational books that they teach the military. A lot of things we're always told to think of it as flat, think of everything being as a plane, because it's easier to do everything if you put your mind in that place. And most of all communication devices that so-called deal with satellites don't actually aim at a satellite. We aim at the what they would call it, the I can't remember the damn name now, the ionosphere. And we get the distance, direction, and then we get the elevation, and we bounce the signal off the ionosphere to 200, 300, 400, 500 miles away to communicate with a unit.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is that if you actually look at GPS, and I can say this because I have, and I know enough about it that I could debate on it against anyone, is that if we actually did live on a spherical globe Earth, how they say GPS works wouldn't actually even work on that. Let's say we had satellites in space and all this and a globe Earth. If you look into how GPS is claimed to work, it actually wouldn't work on the globe even. So the story is very convoluted. I'm pretty sure that I know how it works. I actually do. I'm not going to say I know how it works. But the thing about it is that
when a military takes over a location, such as the third world, the military already has maps that have certain locations. They put vehicles in those specific locations on high points, and those vehicles are known points. Those known points are a static place that is constantly where we get our updated triangulation from, because most countries don't have all the cell towers that we have. So that's where we get our triangulation from, and then we use drones and other certain, I can't say their names, aircraft, that we get our images and our constant accuracy of plus or minus a meter.
Yeah, I know about. I know. When I say I know about it, I wasn't in the military, but I know about those, and I have researched some of the aircraft that are the ones that are not classified. Aircraft that are used by the militaries for communications and stuff like that. It's like
the main point that a lot of people fail to see is Google, which is one of the biggest companies, has purchased, I don't know, I think it was like a good 10 or 15 of the Global Hawks drones. And that's where all of your imagery and your Google Earth maps come from.
Yeah, high altitude photography. That's correct. Yeah, it's all in strips and put together.
A little bit more generally, brother.
The other thing, I don't think I've heard you guys talk about it, but all maps that the military uses are all grid squares.
We were talking about
you
it just
can't
earlier.
turn a grid square into a circle.
No, you can't turn it into a sphere. No, because all the zeniths of all the Cartesian systems need to be parallel.
Well,
just like in celestial
right
navigation.
In that point right there, that you have straight lines that are a cube of 1 kilometer squared that gets stretched out, and it keeps stretching out. It doesn't curve. You can put as many maps as you want together. It's never going to curve or even show a lat long.
No, that's correct. Actually, GPS use 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional Cartesian. So you can't see. The thing about it is, if you're using grid squares, if you're using 2-dimensional squares or 3-dimensional cubes, you can't put them over a spherical surface because all the edges and corners and sides of those squares and cubes must all be of the same dimensions. So they must all meet side to side, edge to edge, and corner to corner. You can't have a situation where you're on a spherical surface and you have different size where they're not meeting, and what happens is they end up getting elongated over a curved surface. Those things can't happen if you're going to use a Cartesian
When was the
grid.
last time you guys discussed the? When was the last time you guys discussed the stretching and distortion of the maps that we currently use that they depict the globe on, where they show Greenland being the size that it is currently?
Yeah, well, one of the questions I've been personally asking our opposition is, can they produce the globe map? Because what you'll normally get is you'll be told that all maps are derived from a globe. Now that's a little rubbish, because the Ordnance Survey maps are the most accurate maps that are known, and they are all 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional Cartesian, and those maps are what GPS use. The GPS unit just converts from Cartesian to sometimes use polar too, which is also a horizontal coordinate system. But basically if you want to see it like that, the latitude and longitude grid is actually a polar coordinate system, but they convert from Cartesian to lat long all the time. And I never get a straight answer. If I ask, show me your globe map, what map is the globe map? They can never produce it because there is no map that's a globe map. Yeah, well, they can't produce it because there's no such thing. So they have to give you variations of something that's supposed to be real, and it's always manipulated. How I would view the closest thing to a world map we have, believe it or not, I would say is the Gleason's map, but the longitude positions of everywhere south of the equator would have to be changed. Because if you look at somewhere like Australia,
I still feel that it's overly stretched still.
Yeah, but that's my point. If you look at, let's say, Australia is stretched out more than it should be. So what you should do is change the Australia, let's just say, as an example, to its correct size, but change the longitude positions of, let's say, Sydney and Perth. You have to change. Yeah.
Gleason's isn't a map. It's just it's a way of sun position data table. If you look at it, it's not a map. It's not purporting to be a map. It's just a way of gathering sun positions based on your longitude and latitude. So because of the...
Well, everybody says all the old school maps where they were too stupid to even draw or a cartographer to even make those old maps, which had cities on them from 1600s and 1500s. Those maps seem more familiar to the actual positions and sizes than what's currently being presented.
Is that going back to Greenland as well, I suppose. But that's a transverse Mercator, which is a ball projection, isn't it? Which is why it's so distorted. But if you look at those,
which is still used by certain flat earthers now, but they can't even see that that's still not a true representation.
Well, on that, they're also looking at the older maps. They're also in slightly different positions relative, especially if you look at Iceland, Greenland. Is that concurrent with your experience as well?
What was that?
Well,
they're in slightly different positions in the maps. Their geographic locations relative to each other is slightly different with regards to Greenland and Iceland. And some cases, their orientation of the whole island is different.
When you actually zoom in on Google Maps or Google Earth and you look at Greenland, you can see the imagery is distorted and almost drawn in. You can see the distortion. The only time that you actually see an accurate image is anywhere there's a city or some type of a structure that they want you to be able to look at is the only time you'll actually see a true image. Everything else is twisted, squished, or stretched to fit on that global image. So if you go north of Maine, along the channels up there, and you go into Greenland, as soon as you hit what they show as ice, you can't even make out anything on there.
Yeah, well, they change that all the time. If you go towards the North Pole, that's been changed. It was a black hole, it was ice, it was water, then it's ice again. They can't make up their mind what they want it to be. Do you know what I mean? So they don't want to show you, whatever
Well, if you go
it is.
all the way through the ocean, you could see the stitch lines. They call those fissures or the plate tectonics bullshit like that, but it's stitch lines that are squished. And they're stitched when they use those sonar mappers of the ocean floor. But there's another place that nobody's actually talking about, because if you actually get sonar imagery of the ocean floor, it's flat, except for the normal topography of the elevation changes.
Yeah.
But they say how Kansas is the flat as a pancake. There's places on the ocean floor that are flatter than that.
The abyssal plain.
Abysmal plains, yeah, abyssal plain.
Okay,
Well,
can I just say that the part that, sorry, Brian, real quick. I just wanted to say that the part that made me smile is when you first started talking about it, and you said they told us to think of it as flat and think of it as a plane. That's fantastic. Do they go into, I mean, obviously after that, right, they go into the details of whatever it is that you're doing, but what's the reasoning behind it? Do they just say it's just easier?
Because
does
we
the one
all
say-
started asking questions in class, and we all started being confused because the math didn't really add up to a lot of us, because we never had to take into any type of account of any type of Coriolis shift,
curvature,
the rotation,
anything?
no changes in the curves math. We never took anything. It was literally distance, direction, and the change in elevation of the ground. All I needed to know was my position and have a map of that area, and I could self-locate through known points, mountaintops, cell towers, structural buildings, and I could find myself no problem and be able to hit a target within 50 feet accurately. And that's without any GPS.
Yeah, quantum array.
And that's taking into account that you assess the Earth as opposite of what it's supposed to be. Interesting.
Yeah, but they all had us so busy. We're always getting yelled at in the military. Somebody cracks a joke. We all have to do push-ups, all that stuff when we're going through training. So we're always being distracted at the same time while we're doing it. And again, this goes on to the whole conspiracy of the Masonic group and stuff like that. But the majority of all leadership in the military is a part of that club. And I wasn't a part of it. And I wasn't a very good soldier because I was a person that always asked questions. I always rebutted somebody. This doesn't make any sense. Why are we making everything more difficult than it really needs to be? Everything was overcomplicated.
Meanwhile, they're telling you it's just more simple to do it this way. You thought it was overcomplicated.
Yeah. And again, I'm my fault for not seeing it myself until later on in life.
My rebuttal to that
I
would be,
believed in the authority.
The military don't want to do things simple. They want to do it accurate. So the methodology they're going to teach you to hit a target is the accurate method. So if there's no need to adjust the numbers you've taken for a globe, you don't adjust just to keep it simple for the grunts, do you? You make them do the adjustments so the bomb hits where it wants to hit. You don't make the adjustments.
And we have to do it immediately. We can't take. Yeah, we have to do it extremely fast and on the go. So, which would made me. That's why I never got in trouble, because I knew my job. I was very accurate, very quick. I could run my mouth all I wanted, but because I knew my job and it was very lethal, they never got rid of me. Because if you're the type of person that would speak up or be a disrespectful person because you didn't believe the leadership, yeah, you got in trouble a lot, which I always did.
Well, that's awesome, brother. Good on you.
Do you know
It's nice
anyone?
see, I've heard there was some few others, but I haven't heard too many military actually come out because, again, we're the most vaccinated and biologically marked. All of our fingerprints, our DNA, everything about us is in the system. So most people fear for their livelihood, which has kept me away from it for the last 7 years, but I've kind of got tired. I don't really give a shit.
The reason I was
also,
asking
sorry,
you
I
earlier,
do curse a lot.
Sorry, just the reason I was asking you earlier about the air, if you knew anyone who, if you had family members who were military and they had, or friends or anything that they were in the Air Force, is that I'm finding it very, very difficult to get.
The highest I've ever flown in a C-5 was 67,000
Let me finish
feet.
what I'm asking you a second. Let me finish what I'm asking, what I'm saying to you a second. Right. Don't presume. Right. I'm having a very difficult time getting the pitch data from commercial airline flights because they won't give it out. Now it's pitch data.
There is no pitch data.
Flights. Well,
it's because there is no pitch data.
So you tell me pitch data it doesn't exist. It's not going to be able to be extracted from the black box.
You can't record something that doesn't change unless you're taking off or landing or changing your elevation. There's no change. So you're not gonna. It's only recorded in the black box. You're not gonna find anything, any type of data that somebody can give you because most of that's in a black box, and it's the air traffic control is monitoring it. But you want to know what aircraft traffic control? Heading, speed, and height. That's it. Above AGL. Yeah. That's it. Height above ground level. That's all they track.
Well, according to some people on the opposing side who are commercial pilots, they say it does exist, but it costs a lot of money to get it. Now, they are claiming stupid stuff to do with the globe. They are claiming a lot of stuff to do with the globe, but when challenged, they won't get the pitch data. The reason I'm looking for pitch data,
ring knockers.
If I go up into, if I go on a commercial flight, I can record my own pitch data using apps and different things like that, but it's not official. I'm looking for the official pitch data from 10 commercial long-haul flights. And the reason I want this is that data will show whether, now I know it's not going to show that it's the globe, because I know what pitch they use and how they use it and why they have to use it, because I understand the lift effect. I understand the lift effect better than most people. But the point is that I want that data. I want something official to do with the pitch, simply because that proves or disproves all claims of heliocentrism.
They say it exists because they need it to exist, but it actually doesn't exist. It's just recorded data that is in the black box. No one has access to even distribute that type of data unless there's an emergency. But what is actually recorded and actually divvied out to everyone is just their heading, their speed, and their altitude, or AGL. That's it. There's nothing else that anyone, and the only ones that say that it exists are ring knockers.
What's a ring knocker?
Yeah, well, what's a ring knocker?
A mason.
Well,
all of that industry, the majority of that industry are a part of the Mason. Again, it goes in, it's not a part of the flat earth debate, but the reason you have such a disconnect between certain people saying it is and it isn't is the ones that say as it is a globe, they're ring knockers. The one that say they're not a part of it. That most of them don't even realize that the guy sitting next to them, the co-pilot or the pilot, the majority of most pilots, they're not going to discuss this because they can't. And the ones that do, they haven't either been in the industry or they haven't been indoctrinated into the club. To get above a certain rank in the military, you get indoctrinated. All of the rank promotions are an indoctrination procedure. So most of these people will defend the Brotherhood even though they don't understand what they're saying.
Wow, that's
Blind,
interesting.
you could call it blind faith.
My friend, my best friend, he has a good friend of his, I don't know this man, who's from where we're from, but he's a captain. And he works out of, I'm not sure what part of Europe he works out of. Could be Madrid or wherever. But he's a captain, and so he's on the ground now more than flying. But I asked my friend if he could get me the pitch and thrust data. Now, I should have specified just the pitch data, but I was looking for the thrust data as well for a reason. And he came back and said, that's sensitive data. He said, I can't get it. That's what he said. But he didn't say it wasn't there. He just said it was sensitive data and he couldn't get it. So what I'm going,
it's only sent to one place.
Sorry, I missed that.
From what I know, because my last deployment to Afghanistan, I had to take control of air traffic control, because when you're firing artillery in certain airspaces, you have to stop all aircraft and distribute them around the area. So you had to throw up 5, 6, 7 nautical mile ring around where you're going to be lethal, and you had to control all of the airspace. So I'd have helicopters, transport aircraft and stuff like that, while still having to monitor what's on the ground and still be able to monitor the target. So there's a lot of stuff that's involved, but there's not that much data that's actually freely out there for anyone to view, because it's just recorded in one location.
When I did, because I attempted to gather this data, and I only had my accelerometer on there, but the point of my accelerometer was to equivocate it to the key piece of equipment, which is your pitch data, which is your artificial horizon. Now, and this was my point, that stays in the same position from start to finish. If we're dealing with curvature, that has to have an adjustment if it's gyroscopically based, because it stays in free space. That's why there won't be no data, because I think, as the gent's saying, there is none, because it is just the artificial horizon is your pitch data, and it tells you we don't compensate, we don't nose down at any point to realign, which is the vectors that Brian's after.
And the only time they do is when they're told to change, either to go higher or lower, to give way. That's it. It's no different than everything flying in the air runs the same laws that ships run.
Yeah, they might have to drop or raise in altitude because they're in the path of an oncoming other aircraft or whatever. Well, what Adam did was excellent, because he showed the vectors were all parallel, whereas he showed how if he was flying over a curved surface, those vectors have to be divergent. That are recorded by the accelerometer. But no, all the vectors were parallel. So other than takeoff and landing, all the vectors were parallel. See, I know that due to the lift effect, I know how the lift effect works. It's actually very simple. But due to the lift effect, they can't fly and hold 100% positive lift without having the chord line of the wings above horizontal. It has to be a pitched above horizontal. And now they change that pitch depending on the thrust, how much thrust is added or their airspeed. But the average, let's say, commercial airliner will fly with it being 3 and 5 degree above horizontal pitch, 3 and 5 degree above horizontal pitch at the nose. But the nose is only pitched up because the chord line of the wings have to be pitched up. And they are only pitched up because that's how the lift effect works. If you bring the chord line of the wings below horizontal, then you're going into, even with a cambered wing, you're going into a change from positive to negative lift. And anything below horizontal is considered a descent. So they have to fly horizontally, and which is how they fly, what they call level flight, which is how you would prove level and horizontal is the same thing. right? If someone needed proof of it, to fly horizontally, they have to fly with the chord line, and then by proxy, the nose is a couple of degrees above horizontal to fly it. When they fly faster, they must push the nose down because the extra thrust will create extra lift. So they'll end up in a stall if they don't. When they fly slower, they have to bring up the chord line higher above horizontal, which brings up the nose because they need more lift to keep in the air. Which is why when they're coming into land, they have a high pitch angle. When they're flying at cruising altitude, there's a slight pitch angle at the front where it's slightly above. But if they start increasing their airspeed, they must bring the nose slightly down. So they'll bring it down from, let's say, +4 degrees down to maybe +2 degrees. But it's always in the pluses. It cannot, due to the lift effect, it cannot be in the minuses. It cannot. And so if you were to fly from London, Heathrow, to Los Angeles International, LAX, then between London Heathrow and LAX, if there was a globe, when you reach in that plane your cruising altitude, at that very point, that's the only point you'll be at horizontal. From that point on, there will be an accumulated below horizontal pitch. So you would have to end up 87 degrees below your starting horizontal when you get to Los Angeles. That doesn't happen. None of that happens. They fly horizontally because that's how you fly. You can't fly any other way because the lift effect won't allow it. You can't fly without the lift effect. There's no way out of that.
Well,
So-
that's very true.
So, brother, you said that you were on the ground. You were the guy. You were one of the guys positioning these vehicles, like helicopters and stuff, in the air, wherever they needed to be, right?
Yep, I
Is that
had
what you
to
said?
take control of air traffic control that was on the FOB. And when we were going lethal, I had to monitor everything. So I had to be in control of all aspects, ground and air, while firing either artillery mortars or having close air support, while being engaging lethal, monitoring all the cameras, and still be able to monitor all the aircraft. So if you had to take into effect all the extra math that was involved with the shape of a globe, it would be nearly impossible for one person to even do that to begin with.
Not just the shape, the movement, right? Because that's what I was going to ask. At no
The
point
constant,
did you have to account for some
the
type of
constant
apparent
shift of a
deviation.
round.
Sorry.
All I ever give the guns, the majority of the time, if I'm not doing a grid location, is distance and direction and my known location. That's all they need to know. They don't need to know anything else. And when it goes into their freaking gunnery computer, the gunnery computer literally just computes a grid off of the distance and the direction. Which I can do it myself if I wanted to, but that takes an extra few seconds to go to a map, get my position, get a direction, convert it to on the map, and then draw the line and distance, and then get it. So most of the time, where everything's done with lasers. And that's what they pretty much for my last few years. It was just a push of technology, taking the element of the human mind out of it. So all you have to do is point a laser. The computer will know your location. It gets the distance. It gets the direction. It computes it and then sends everything digitally.
Well, that's pretty funny because we've actually had pilots show up here and try to tell us all about how they can account for this apparent deviation that they call Coriolis. And there might even be instrumentation on the aircraft that could do such things. But when we try to ask what that is,
Well,
and
you can
how
program
it's
anything you
working,
want into a computer, and some dum-dum will believe that's what they think they're doing, but that doesn't mean it's
Yeah.
actually happening.
well, that makes sense because we never get what's the name of that instrument or how that happens. We just get, oh, it's there, it does it. That's what we get.
The
Somebody's
gyroscope?
definitely accounting for it.
Yeah,
For
but most of them don't even know what Coriolis is, Chocolate. That's another
Yeah.
thing.
I know.
Well, technically, within what they're claiming, they're not. It has nothing to do with Coriolis. What they're claiming, their official claim, is a north to south, south to north deviation. That's what their official claim is when it comes to the globe. So, could I ask you, always of that, what is the greatest distance that you would have been firing something at? What kind of distance would it have fired?
The farthest I've fired was over 42 kilometers.
Okay, so let's say 30 miles, let's say, right? 30 miles. Now, was there times, now I know this is a generic, stupid question, but I just want it for the audience. Was there times when you were firing directly north or directly south?
There was none.
There must have been some
Nothing was
times
taken
when
into effect. Nothing.
Yeah, but I'm not asking you. I'm just looking for no. Just play along with me here a second. Was there times when you were firing due north, and was there times when you were firing due south? Let's say firing exactly north and exactly south. Did you do that?
Well, that's the problem. Nothing of that was ever brought up. They never discussed
I know
being
that.
we have to
You're
account
missing
for
the
anything.
point. You're missing the point. Hang on. You're missing the point. I'm trying to get you to play along with me for a second. You'll understand in a minute. Did you at times fire artillery directly north and directly south? Was there times that you did that?
Was there times that I did that? Yeah.
Yeah. And did you have to take any account? Did you have to take the movement of the Earth into account at any point when you were firing those two directions?
Nope.
That's because the Earth isn't moving. Yeah. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know, just for the audience. Because
If that was actually the case, the extra amount of math that would needed to calculate any of that would take more time, and well, they'll say that I know already what the opposition will say. Well, oh, that's why you have computers doing. No, we did it fine without computers, because when you deal with 60 millimeter mortars, everything's by voice. They don't have a computer. Well, back then they didn't. They've now everybody's getting these tablets and stuff like that. So they're literally making the military dumber because a computer's taking over everything. So people think the computer's doing the work. Well, when it's analog, we never had to freaking deal with anything.
Yeah, because if you were firing directly north or directly south, and you were on a rotating globe Earth, then you would have to hit something that was directly north or directly south, then you couldn't be firing. If you were firing something directly north, then you'd have to be firing east for it to hit the north, because it's not going to, if you fire directly north, then according to the globe Earth claim, or directly south, that when the artillery or mortar or whatever gets to where you want it to go, the place you're supposed to be hitting has already gone east. So you would have to be firing east, somewhat northeast to hit north, and somewhat southeast to hit south, because the claim is that the globe rotates it from west to east. So that's why I asked you, because the official claim is that there is no deviation east to west and west to east. This is what they claim, right? It's nonsense. But there is a deviation north to south and south to north. This is the claim they make. This is the official globe claim. But you fired 30 miles north and 30 miles south, and you never had to deal with any deviation.
No, it never came in even brought up. No one ever brought up the idea of that, oh, well, we have to take into account that the Earth is spinning.
Yeah, the Quantum Eraser, who's one of the head man of the panel,
Also
you could
comes
say.
sorry.
Yeah.
It also comes into effect that.
Go on.
Go ahead, bro.
No, who wants to go?
You go ahead, man.
It also comes into effect that you said it also comes into effect.
No, well,
that.
it. What was that, Nathan?
I was just starting off your last sentence that we left off before this couple of minutes of confusion. So you said.
Well, I'm just not trying to interrupt anyone, so everyone gets the same point, because I know that becomes a huge issue when you have 10 people in one conversation.
Well, look, I say what I was going to say. Quantum Eraser, who's one of the main panel members, who's probably the main panel member here, he is ex-master gunner. He was 20 years as a master gunner in the US Army. And he said the same thing. He said there was never a time where the movement of the Earth or the rotation of the Earth or curvature was ever brought into it. Everything you did was based off of a stationary horizontal plane.
Yep. And I even went into the point of a lot of our targeting systems. I had to learn, so I had to program the software. When you go through the software, you can actually read the code lines going through that. None of the code lines had any math in there to even deal with it.
That's interesting. How did you do that? What do you mean you went into the code? How did you do that?
When you get a software update for a lot of the systems, you can watch on the military computers. It looks like a big microwave oven. I think they've updated it now since I've been out, but it looks like a big microwave oven with a screen on it because it's a hard case. It's meant to protect for explosion, stuff like that. But a lot of times you can watch the lines of code being thrown in there and updated. And a lot of that stuff never dealt. There was no calculation updates for anything for curve. It never brought any of those topics into there. A lot of it was all just imagery updates. And when they change the imagery, they're changing a fraction of a small amount of where the location is, because the mountains are actually changing. Nobody actually discusses that, but every time you have a landslide, a position at the top of the mountain has to change because the very top might change in location. So when you have a military vehicle parked up there that's giving off a location ping, if they have to move that location due to an earthquake or something like that, you're constantly having to change that known point's location. So the maps change very, very small amounts.
Of course, that makes sense.
Any globe believers out there on Discord have any slight problems with any of this?
Yeah, I've got a problem with it. I still don't buy the
I'm pretty sure there's a few.
You saying you see whether or not they're calculating for it in the code. I don't know.
It's not the long code. It's all the short that'll come in and it'll pop up what updates are coming in, what information is being changed. And I've never seen a single thing that has to change because they keep pushing this whole narrative that the magnetic poles are changing. Well, if the magnetic poles are changing, so does land navigation when you deal with the compass. All of that, if that's the whole point, your north would constantly change.
Don't misconstrue what I'm criticizing. I'm just saying, based on your understanding of what code is and what you see in the updates, it's just not something I would lean on if I were you, because...
Oh, I'm not going to either.
You have here, it's now dedicated to tape, but I'm just saying for future reference, because all it takes is some code writer to come and say, oh, right, so in... I don't know what programming code is these days. C++. You understand where they could put that calculation into that, and you would never see it, and you'd go, "What's C++?" Eradicating your conclusion, which is perfectly valid. I'm just saying, it's just one of those things. Unless you're a programmer, probably best not to lead with that. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, I understand the point. I said that before. I was like, I know somebody would take offense to it and they'd be like, oh, you're wrong. And I'm like, well, there's possibility there's some things I'm not remembering properly either, or how everything's going. But again, they're not attacking the argument. They're attacking a non sequitur, something that doesn't really account to anything.
I'm glad you're saying it, and I'm glad you appreciate it. That's why I'm telling you. Yes, absolutely, they'll major on the minor. And yes, absolutely, they'll draw attention to this non sequitur when there's an opportunity presented. More so if they're actually well-versed in programming or code, as you put it. Even if they're not, and they're just an amateur like me, I would still question it. And just as a devil's advocate, it's just worth knowing that someone would question it, just so you just, don't lean on it in the future, because it's just going to get you in trouble. That's all I'm trying to say.
Oh, I completely understand.
It's our hypervigilance getting the better of us. And I say us because I don't want to take full responsibility. We're all like it.
No, because that's all they ever attack. They never attack the argument. They attack some somebody that might misconstrue, or it doesn't really have a point, but they just brought it up into the topic. They only attack that. They never attack anything.
Right.
Well, it's all distractions and tactics and fallacies. That's all they got to defend this globe that only exists in their minds.
Well, it's done through a handbook. They're all being trained how to do this, how to keep the divide going. That's why flat Earth hasn't become a truth to the majority. It's still a truth to the minority. And I know you guys have argued with Jaron and Bob Noel and his little, I don't even know what to call them, but they've literally just destroyed what the Flat Earth Awakening was.
I couldn't disagree with you there. They have absolutely did their best and continue to do their best to.
I got in it with Bob a long time ago with him and his Patricia Steer. And me and him had at it on a comment chain. He blocked me quite a few times.
Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year, Eli.
Happy New Year, Eli.
Happy New Year, brother.
Then say it back right now. How's everything? How's the first year still?
Going good. Going good.
Good. I started incorporating the elevation angle to Polaris argument, Brian. Thank you very much.
How's that going for you?
Good. It can't not be a perfect field. That's what they based all of the mapping off of, a perfect circle.
Well, yeah.
A burger-shaped perfect circle? Or a pear-shaped perfect circle? Which one?
Oblique.
A little chubby.
Well, what's happening? Something I have the ballers in a bit of a tizzy about at the moment is I pointed out to them because I knew for a good while that they didn't realize when you're using marine sextant, they have this thing in their head. I don't know. I know why they have it because they're believing in something, right? That they shouldn't be believing in. But they thought that the dip correction was based on how far away the horizon is. And the reason they were trying to come up with that, and they didn't realize, I said because I made a video and I pointed out that at port, if you're getting onto a new ship and you don't know the height of the ship, your eye height above the water, you measure at port in calm water, your eye height above the water. So then when you go out to sea, if you're at sea for 3 weeks, which often you would be, right, on a ship, when you're at sea for those 3 weeks on that ship, every time you do a sextant sighting, you don't change the dip correction. You have the same exact dip correction every time because your height of eye above the water will never change. But they had it in their head that the dip correction was a changing thing. Even Farmer's Boy commented, that guy, Farmer's Guy commented that it was a constant variable. It's like, or something like that. It's like, no, the horizon has nothing to do with the dip correction. It's purely your height of eye above the water. Because if you think about their paradigm, in reality, the horizon moves further from us and comes closer to us because it's purely an optical location. But if you take in their 7/6 and greater than 7/6 standard refraction, if you take that into account, what's happening is a change in the size of their globe, right? So consequently, not only will you have an horizon moving further from you and closer to you due to this expansion in their radius, but you will also have differing in the elevation of the horizon in accordance with the observer. So that consequently, not only like would you have to take into account within their paradigm how far away the horizon is, but you'd also, which would change all the time, considering that that their globe is changing its size all the time as they need it to. But because the horizon is changing because of the size of their globe, then it's going to be raising in elevation and lowering in elevation in accordance to the observer with the sextant. So now you couldn't, they thought in their head, a lot of these people had it in their head that the dip correction was purely on where you saw the horizon at the time. It's like, no, that is not dip correction. That is not what you do. You don't try and calculate some dip based off of how low the horizon would look to you or how it would look to you based on the 7/6 refraction of the day. No, it's purely the same exact thing. The horizon mirror is pointed at the horizon. You know your height of eye above the water. You correct for that height of eye. So you're creating a horizontal with the horizon. So you're creating a horizontal with sea level. That's what you're doing. 1 second, sorry, I just say you're creating a horizontal with sea level. And that's what you're doing. Sea level. Level and horizontal are the same thing. And that's what you're doing. But they thought that it was based on the position of the horizon. Go on, whoever it is. Someone was interrupting there. But anyway, I finish off that the globers have it in their head, or at least did until the weekend, that your dip correction is based on how far away the horizon is, or the position of the horizon. It's like, no, it's purely a constant. Once you know your height of eye, and you can do 40 sightings in the same day, or 40 sightings a day, and your height of eye, your dip, will always be exactly the same for each sighting.
Cool. Thank you, Brian. Was someone trying to get my attention from Discord? Go ahead.
Hello, just got back. What did I miss?
Nothing.
You mean everything?
We just try to get the guy
Happy
from
New
Discord.
Year, Arwen.
Happy New Year.
What's up, man?
Yeah, I just got a new webcam, but it took some time. I had to crawl through an anthill, also known as a media market. So it took a little longer than usual, but I got it.
That's what's up.
And how was your celebration?
Just a normal day for me.
A normal day for you? Okay.
Yeah, it was a Sunday.
Yeah. But
Why
with a
should I
lot of
have been-
fireworks, right?
Arwen,
Yo.
so should it have been special?
What? What did you
Should
say?
I have gone outside and shot off fireworks to celebrate another revolution around the sun?
Yeah.
Whee!
You know how much fun that is?
Not even that, though. It's closest to the winter solstice, right? The New Year. But you're just in the middle of the winter. There's nothing new about it. I've said this every year.
Right.
Spring
It's
is
a
New Year.
celebration of the return of the sun.
Exactly.
Spring is that.
Well, isn't that worth celebrating? I mean, come on.
A Gregorian year? Yeah, no. It's not fun. It's just cold to still being cold. No. I'll wait till spring. I'll be happy then.
I don't
Me
care
too.
what calendar it is.
How are you,
I
Alberic?
just want to light fireworks.
I thought the return of the sun was called morning.
Yeah, but we get bugger all hours of it throughout the day. So you get a bit depressed, you get a bit seasonally affected and all that. And then come the spring, you wake up, sunshine. You go to bed, sunshine. It's just lots of sunshine. Everyone loves that. So everyone feels like, things are better. And you look around, there's flowers, smells nice. If you're living anywhere near nature and a farm, in my case, my parents used to live on a farm, all the newborns start coming. So, things about life start to happen in spring. It's all very new. Yeah, it's new year. Anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, come on, in the middle of the winter, it still works because it's like the dimmest point of the sunlight. And for a lot of countries, also, it's basically, well, a lot of snow everywhere and frost continually, right? So it's all about all of that going away and spring returning. And in the Netherlands, it's also because, I don't know, we're Dutch. And it reminds me personally, I don't even know if the rest of the Dutch even think about this stuff, but it reminds me of like how we became an independent nation, through ships, cannons, and lots of gunpowder. So it reminds me of that too.
Festival. That's a joke.
Okay, well, not cool then. I don't give a shit. I celebrate it like that.
Well,
I mean,
while I'm
we're
still
not
here,
even
I got a
supposed to
question
have
for you guys.
fireworks here.
Okay, go ahead. What's your question?
Has anyone brought up the topic to argue a point or not argue for the globe, how you can see the moon and the sun occupying the same space at the same time during the day?
Yeah, you can model that out. I've seen it modeled. It's not a big deal in the heliocentric model.
Well, it is when it's a new moon.
New moon? What's the new moon?
Where it's just blacked out.
You get to see that, do you?
I've seen it at least 5 times in the last 2 years.
Bollocks.
No, you don't get it. The moon is behind the sun when that happens.
No, don't make your assumptions, Arwin. No, you can't see.
Why not? They do
You
it.
can't see the new moon. If you claim you've seen it 5 times, I'm going to call you out and say, no, you haven't.
Well, I know it's hard for people to believe, but yeah, I've seen the new moon.
Got any photos?
What
photos?
evidence? Well, I don't have any. It's just my word.
Okay, I don't believe you.
Okay.
I know
Well,
you
will
won't.
you take our word that we've seen unicorn farts?
No, he's not proposing something preposterous. He's proposing something that's required in the heliocentric model. New moon is required in a heliocentric model. He's claiming he's seen it. I'm saying there is no new moon to see.
Well, all you see is a black orb.
So he's claimed.
Next time I see it, I'll definitely have to record it.
Yes, please. That'd be
that's
useful.
2015 evidence.
Yeah, I know. But even then, I can go where it's a, what is that called? It's like the last 2 days before a new moon, where all you have is that tiny little fragment of light emanating from the moon.
That's not a new moon, though.
That's
is
not
it?
the new moon.
I know. I'm saying I can go to that. Have you seen that?
Moon.
Sorry, so instead of the new moon, you can go to something that isn't a new moon and claim that it's kind of like that. No, that's not satisfactory at all.
Well, I'm not claiming it's kind of like that. I'm just saying the amount of light that's from the phase next to the sun.
I mean, next
during
to
the day.
Only analogous.
What do you mean next to the sun?
You
That's an
have high
analogy.
noon and the moon. I'd probably say 20 degrees off to the, what was I say, east? Yeah, the east of the moon.
Nathan
the moon would
said it
be
earlier,
rising behind
yeah?
the moon. Or
He's saying
sorry,
to
the
you-
moon would be rising behind the sun.
In a heliocentric assumption of orbit, it would be.
It has to be there in the heliocentric model. We don't make a claim.
During the
but
day?
we certainly can't see it.
Yeah, the
can
new
we?
moon, yeah. Yeah, you'd have to see it. We don't.
Why wouldn't it be completely illuminated?
Shh, okay, guys, let's start this back and forth with non-stop interruption of the person that's talking. Let's make this the last time I have to say that, please. Thank you. You want to repeat yourself, please? What's your name, by the way?
Eyes of Death.
Oh, it's Eyes of Death again. Okay, sorry. No, that's a heliocentric assumption. Orbital motion is assumed in your description.
I'm not claiming the orbital motion. I'm claiming that they say that the moon is the nighttime light and the sun is during the day. But to have both of them occupy the day while still being able to see the phases. One, if the sun and the moon are next to each other, moon rising behind, according to their terminology, behind the sun.
Only from our vantage
How
point.
can that
Okay,
be
now I understand
possible
your questioning.
on-
I gotcha. Yes, from our perception down here on an assumption of a spherical surface with an orbital sun and moon, then yes, from our perception, it could appear that this doesn't stack up in the heliocentric model. However, Chris Monk was good enough to actually model this out for me when I said the exact same thing and show me in a heliocentric, sun-centric model how the Earth and Sun would be positioned with respect to the Moon in that exact scenario. Now, the reason I can say it so specifically, and you can check, I've got that video of that observation of that Moon next to that Sun, and I've gone to Chris, here's my video, how is this possible in a heliocentric model? As far as I can tell from where I'm standing, this should not work. And he's gone, no, from your vantage point, it wouldn't work. But from the moon versus the globe, Earth, and sun's vantage point, it would be lit precisely as it's shown. And he demonstrated it to me in the model. It's only because of our vantage point here that makes no sense. And I did question the same thing and went and captured it to be able to say, here's what I say should not work. Show me that it should. And sure enough, the guy on my side showed it me in a heliocentric model.
And same on screen, Nathan. Is
Second,
what's
Adam?
talking. On screen is what.
So I still can't understand the globe argument for it because it still has no sense of watching the phases.
Okay, go ahead, Adam.
You see the
Just one
exact
sec.
phase, either the
We heard the second and third time. Thanks. Just go ahead, Adam.
I think what's being discussed is what I put on screen, which are these impossible moon phases. And I didn't have Chris Monk. I had Mike Kavanagh model it in Stellarium or something, and that's out there for people to watch. They are within the heliocentric model and Stellarium and the limitations. All these phases are possible. They are created by the relative positions of illumination of a sphere and the relative positions of the sun, moon, and Earth. The issue, there you go, there they are there, look, waning gibbous to waxing gibbous in terms of the relative positions. Now, that can still happen, and there are a few that you look at in terms of the impossible ones, and you can find them and you can plot them on Stellarium, and they will give you an excuse. I still have an issue with this, and it's the mugging you off of going to the center and the movement of both the visible horizon to a celestial horizon that makes these impossible moon things possible in their model. This is a good example of one. You see, your visible horizon does not allow you, because you're on a ball, to see this alignment. So they move you to the celestial horizon, which does allow you to see it. So there is a slight shift. You have to realize you can't see below your feet. You are being required to look to infinity and see below your feet here. So there is that argument as another example of it. It doesn't move the position. Yeah. So they're the impossible moon phases that are roughly the issue. But when you do look into them, they spend a lot of money on this. The models, the computer programs will allow it. But just remember that you do have to go to your celestial horizon.
Oh yeah, you can program anything you want in a computer to match anything, but that doesn't mean it matches. To me, it's still, I cannot see how the globe model matches what I've been seeing.
You overtalked the important point, which was to allow for this within the models, you have to move from your local visible horizon to a celestial horizon, which is to the center of a presupposed ball, to allow the angular point for the celestial object in the sky to be in your visible sphere within the model. That's the contradiction.
That still wouldn't explain them being directly above me.
Why don't we ever see any celestial lights below eye level? How about that?
Because that's the horizon.
What, you don't believe there are stars underneath your feet right now, man?
But isn't that horizon? No, there's yeah, I don't believe that. I could
Come
believe
on,
it,
man.
but the point
there
is
are
I never
apps
see
that
it.
show you that.
The point is that you never
Why
actually
can't you see the
it.
stars when you're above the cloud level?
I don't know.
No, even if you stand on like giant towers and you look down and oh look, the sun is still shining for a bit. Yeah, that's cute. That's still above eye level though. Everything is. All the celestials are always above eye level. And eye level, well, when you draw that out, that's pretty much a flat plane. Always.
Well, that's why they can't be below eye level. You're asking for a law of perspective to be broken, aren't you? But for them to be below eye level.
I'm just saying it's all super cute how all these modeling tricks, celestials line up. Oh, look, the shadows from the right side. And oh, look, oh, yeah. But at the same time, no celestials have ever been spotted above, or I mean below eye level.
Because
So
there's a point where you should get high enough that you should be able to look down and see stars.
exactly. Why doesn't that ever happen?
What height would that be, though?
Who the hell knows?
A height.
But
If
there's
they
got to
can't see
be
the
a height
stars
when
in
that's possible.
outer space.
But I've never seen it. I've never even seen like a mirage of a reflection of stars below eye level. Now that's not entirely true, by the way. You can literally put a mirror on the ground and then it'll do that. But that's a reflection, so it's not a direct line of sight.
Come on. Put a mirror on the ground.
Yeah. Or really still water, you know?
Yeah, but that's really still water. That's not
Yeah,
star.
but it's still a reflection. That's the problem. It's not actually a direct line of sight.
You carry this on and Nathan will round out, Arwen.
Exactly.
I just got back.
Yes.
And with that. No, I won't.
Come on, it's a pretty good.
There was a question before we went to the eyes mentioned, or a statement he made, and I did want him to just clarify it. He said globe busters have ruined the flat Earth message, and then without ad hom, and specifically, could you maybe expound on that a little, eyes?
They pretty much they've stopped trying to think, and all they do, well, I got to rephrase that, the word think, because that's all they do is think. They never actually put any of their thoughts to the terms that you guys use as science. It has to hold true to the experimental process, but nothing they do. They can tear apart an argument of a globe versus a globe person can sit there and tear apart their thought projects. So all they've been doing is going back and forth with the same arguments that have gone nowhere for neither side. Where I've watched over the last, 5 years, how the arguments have progressed here, and I've watched how the globe believers have come in here, and they've slowly become almost none of them have even bothered to come back on. I don't even think I've heard of a new person coming on here to actually argue in the last year that I can remember.
Sure,
No,
we've just
probably right.
It's just been mainly flat earthers that have come and argued with us about their new religion of whatever, ether.
The new hotness.
Yeah, that's what we've had. So, no, we've had
That's the term I tried not to really bring up, is because I know, Nathan, you didn't want to have religion brought into this whole nonsense that everybody, but that's literally what the flat earth has gone. They went down the religious route, throwing the Bible verses at everything without actually, okay, you could take the Bible verses, now let's put it into reality. They have not done that.
What?
They speak with thought projects about the Bible verses, but nobody's actually tried to show proof that the Bible verses, yeah, they speak about a flat earth, but they talk about 4 pillars. All right, can anybody find 4 pillars? They talk about an
so they
ice
just
wall.
make superficial statements. They make superficial statements and don't follow it up with any digging into the
And
information.
you guys are the only ones that follow through with your limited abilities to do things. We all don't have finite amount of money that we can go out and prove any of this. We can't go to space unless you're one of their puppets that they'll send up there like Mr. Beast. Or go to Antarctica. I've had a few friends that have gone to Antarctica, and they've told me that they weren't allowed to do shit. They had a set schedule, and they were not allowed to detour from that set schedule. So unless we were to buy a boat of our own money, enough fuel, and sneak past and get down there, there ain't no way for us to prove yay or nay. And that's my problem with what the whole other side of the flat earth community has turned into, is the same side as what science has turned into, religious zealotry. They can't think outside of a book. Just because the Bible was written doesn't mean all of what's in there is factual.
Right, they're just trying to claim souls now, not educate.
Well, it goes down, I don't know how far you guys went down the rabbit hole, but it goes to the whole duality of the system. You now have a duality where you have it's flat or globular with a finite, 0.00001% think it's hollow earth because they made a movie about a fucking giant monkey going to the center.
King Kong. Oh shit.
And it goes down to also, you have the other side of the flat earth group that has started to go towards the mud fossils, the whole thing with that. But there you got Roger, very brilliant guy, who can't see that his 200-mile long dragon in his fish or whatever on Africa, if it was to stand up, how could it live on a spinning ball with a finite atmosphere? Its head would be above it. It'd be in what science says is the outer space. The same as the trees. So
But
a tree
didn't
can
the
live in a
dragon-
vacuum now?
Didn't the dragon, according to the legend, fall down from the heavens onto the earth? And then fought
There's
and was split
that
apart?
legend, and there's one that it came from below.
The dragon.
There's so many stories of creatures being in the abyss, where the Titans came from. They also say Atlas is holding up the world, and he's still there. It's a petrified Titan that holds up the world's dome.
Yeah, but the abyss, that's
You
not
can't
like a
prove any of these
geographical location.
old stories.
Yes, but the abyss is not a geographic location. And from what I get from the legends, it was like a giant black dragon, then it died, and then the Titans like sprang forth from it. It's like synchronized even in the Greek mythology. So
Well, we can see those objects.
I'm pretty
that they
sure it
speak of,
fell.
but-
It didn't like crawl up, because where the hell would it do that? It's massive. Where did it crawl up from then?
You're talking
Did
about
the ground split apart? It crawled out and then it grew back closed? Like what? No.
Oh, we can go down to the Bible route and say that freaking the water's above and the water's below.
Sure, but it didn't
Where were the
come
water
from
stored from
in
below?
the
It has
earth.
to be some type of abyss, something that holds a large, vast world. Again, that's where the whole hollow Earth group is trying to go to.
Yeah,
And
but you
everything
don't
came
know
from
what
the
the
center.
abyss is, though. That's the point. It's a description.
Well, yeah,
It's like
I agree with that.
A frequency, more likely. I mean, it's not a geographic location, right?
At least not one that we understand or can conceptually even figure out.
Eli, if you're trying to talk, we can't hear you.
Who?
I was talking to Eli. There you go.
So, yeah, I was saying maybe the problem is we try to argue people down about their religion. Maybe they come to us and it's like we should know better than to do that. You know, it's like because ultimately it's a faith, it's a belief, but then we argue about the facts. You know, and it's like in context of the facts, it's the facts of the belief rather than something that I can. Well, I don't. For the sake of the general audience that may or may not, you know, have one or another theology, it's like it's different than accepting facts in the context of the faith and facts that are empirically uh, found by way of experiment. So what's the point in arguing about it? Like it's in fact the only thing that people don't realize is that Einstein, Hubble, Georges Lamont, uh, Copernicus, all of these people were religious about it. And if you read their work, they explicitly state that. So we don't really have to
along that
argue with them.
line,
They're the ones ignorant about that.
during that time period, you had that religious control aspect, that you had to speak a certain way or they would deem you a heretic. So most of those Copernicus and all like that, they had to speak within a certain guidelines that they don't get strung up by the church. But
that's
over
in public,
time,
though.
the church changed its rules because it was taken over at a certain period of time. Anyone can argue about who, what, where, when, and why, but things changed. People take control, and as we've literally watched in our own age, how one nutcase can take control of a government and completely destroy an economy. All it takes is one person to be believed by a mass of people, and you can change everything.
Now that's a myth. That's not one
What's a
man.
myth?
It's the complacency to a man. It's the other people that comply to it that do it. It's not one
That's what I'm
individual
saying,
can't do all that.
You're just changing the wording, Arwen.
No, I'm relaying I'm placing correctly the actual responsibility. You can't just say it's all one man, right?
Well, no,
The
because that
people
takes
in the
away
religion
the freedom
allowed
of choice.
it to be changed.
That's the only
It's
thing
called
we truly
corruption.
have is the freedom of choice.
Right. To choose to
But when
maintain
you're
it
only
or let it
given,
corrupt.
but the problem is that people don't realize there's more than two choices in the world. They fight each other over two choices. You have the left and the right, the red, the blue, all these duality terminologies, but that's all right now we're fighting over whether it's
I'm
round
not.
or flat.
I'm not. And I let Ballard in my chat too.
We're
You
not
shouldn't be
fighting
fighting
over
over physics.
we know it's flat.
Well, here's one thing that I haven't
Exactly.
brought up yet, but here's another topic. When science speaks of atoms and what the smallest things are in the universe, I can't exactly know the exact number, but the space between an atom is what, 99% of it is emptiness.
It's a religion.
According
No,
to
there's no
them,
such thing as
that's what they
emptiness.
say.
According to them, yeah.
But yeah,
you
that's
can't
what they state.
have
But
nothing. Can't have nothing.
It's only a
Show
model.
anybody where nothing exists. And how can nothing interfere with something? How can a non-physical thing interfere with the physical thing when the very attribute of the two are not the same? They can't go together. You can't science a non-physical thing. You can't even show me one. You couldn't get one if I paid you all the money in the world. So what the fuck is a non-physical thing that everybody keeps talking about? I don't think it exists anywhere.
Oh yeah.
Well, if you take a vacuum,
That's their whole. That's all their whole story.
Lower air pressure.
Why? How did they get that story when everybody with common sense knows that that's not possible? You can't have energy without having stuff to make it,
And
right?
additionally, one more thing. Can I add something?
There either is or there isn't.
And you can't have none of that without memory or intelligence. So it looks like all the mugs are like something wrong.
And just to add, the guy said science speaks. Science doesn't speak. Science is a method. Science doesn't speak. It's the scientists or the people that are saying something. So it's important to distinguish between science, which is a method, and the scientists that are saying whatever, and it may just be pseudoscience.
Science is pseudoscience too, because all you need to do is have a hypothesis and you can never be proved wrong. So cool, huh? Science doesn't prove anything wrong, doesn't prove anything right. So all you got to do
Yes, it
is
does.
science,
It either
method, and
proves or
hypothesis.
disproves the cause
All
of an
you got to
effect.
do is come up. Hold on. All you got to do
What
is
would
come
be
up
the
with a
purpose of
hypothesis.
your experiment then?
Guys, Demek
After
is
you
still
come up
hello.
with a hypothesis,
1 second.
who has done it? Who has disproved it?
Gotta
Who has
yield as
disproved
well.
their hypothesis in science? You can't. Not possible.
Demek,
Can't prove
can
things
you not
with
hear me?
science.
Hello? You have to yield when.
Yeah, you just started talking.
I was trying to get everyone else to stop talking
In the middle
to
of
you.
the end of my
Now
sentence.
I'm trying to get everyone else to yield to you, but you won't let me do that either because you keep talking
Well, I
through me.
can once I hear
I'm
you.
still trying to get that
Everybody
through to you.
doesn't work on
That
the
as the
light
host,
speed pace
as
of
the
your
host, I
voice.
need to retain control of the show, and you're not letting that
Yes,
happen.
God.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're not letting
God,
that
I
happen.
hear you.
Okay, that means just be
Somebody
quiet while I'm talking.
sabotage.
Now Neil's doing it. At some point, I will regain control of the fucking show. Right. I didn't hear a word of the last statement of Demek because Neil, then Chocolate, then Arwin started talking straight through him with objections. Right, we didn't get to the end of what he had to say. So hopefully he'll repeat the last bit and then we can go from there. Go ahead, Demek.
You want to hear again?
That doesn't mean you, Neil. No, I haven't got control. I'll try that again. I'll try it slower. Demek is about to get through the bit he didn't get through because none of you could contain yourselves and we had 5 people talking. He carried on, ploughed on anyway, even with me trying to get control of you all. Now I'm inviting him to say the last statement. That's Demek. So if your name isn't Demek, not you. Go ahead.
All right, I was talking about the scientific method. They made it in a way so where all you have to do with the scientific method is make something up called a hypothesis. That doesn't matter for anything because you're not disproving it or proving it. So what's the point of having a hypothesis that can't be disproven or proved? How is that a scientific method for anyone when science cannot prove or disprove the hypothesis you came up with? And it will not. They will not. It won't. That's why gravity is king. Because it's a hypothesis, right? All their hypotheses are king of law. Their principles, the laws, and everything else of man. Pretty weird, right? And they haven't been proven.
Okay, so you're saying that people mistake hypotheses for validated experimentation. Yes, they do. They'll use the word hypothesis to claim that they've got scientific validation when what they're doing is using a claimed cause and effect relationship that's yet to be validated as the explanation, which hasn't been validated. Yes, I understand.
100%.
We get it. All right, Neil, go ahead.
And I wasn't trying to talk over you. I was just trying to get my sense out. Sorry.
I've regained control now. It's fine. Thank you. Go ahead, Neil.
No, I got nothing to say now that I heard him.
Okie dokie. Anybody else?
I'm sorry, I had a lot of trouble keeping muted, but you told me to. But that entire thing he rolled out was just really bizarre. Science doesn't prove anything. Like you can't use it to prove what? Everything about it was wrong.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Whoa. Well, let me just address Arwin. Now, what he's doing is saying where they use the word of science. Now, if we were saying it, we'd say the pseudo-scientists, pretender clown muppets that use science when they haven't got any, say, and then his explanation of how they use a hypothesis as an explanation when it's not been validated. He's using the word science because they use the word science. Now, we understand, Arwin, that there's a bit more qualification, but I understood what he meant.
All right. Gave me a headache, though.
Fine. He knows what he means. I knew what he meant just by the tone. Go ahead. Anybody else?
Good morning.
Hey, Dan. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Just
What's up,
joined.
Tim?
I should be sharing something down there.
Happy New Year,
Yes.
Tim.
Thank you, guys. Same to you. Thank you. Been sick for 2
No
weeks.
doubt. Happy fiscal New Year.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to comment because Adam said the show was still going on, and I listened to the live show because I was slept in, but I thought the live show was great. But I just caught this last part here because I just joined. So let me just ask a question of, is it Demesis or Demic?
Demic.
Yeah. So if someone did follow the scientific method with a hypothesis and DV, IV, control variables, would he say, like Jaron, that it doesn't prove? Or would he say, if followed correctly, it proves either the affirmative or the null? Where's his stance on that?
He's not answering, but I'm pretty sure he's a fan of the show and would only reasonably agree.
Well, I don't know because I came in hearing the back and forth and the interruptions until you calmed it down, and I'm not sure what he said. I'd like to hear from him if what it sounded to me was that when they misuse the method, they get away with the feeling or the belief that they actually went through the method and got some proof, but they never did. Okay, well, we stand against that. But what if they actually went through a method and it did yield that water boils because of heat? Is now that going to change? And the way he was saying it, it doesn't prove or disprove because all you got to do is say the word hypothesis. But you can say the word hypothesis and not go through the rigorous systematic experimentation, and he would be right. But if you went through the rigorous experimentation, then it does prove something and disprove something else. Where is he on that?
It depends on what you think you can rigorously disprove or prove with science.
Well, how about just water boiling because of heat?
What about pressure and temperature? What about differential and elevation?
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's a different experiment, and you'd have to have a setup for that. But if you were going to say at sea level, water boils at a certain temperature when applied heat, it proves that. And then if you want to go do it in a vacuum and test it some other way by pressure, then that would do it as well. But that's a different method, isn't it?
I wouldn't be able to do it in a vacuum because vacuums don't exist in nature. And I would be able to lower the water down in the ground low, and it could heat up. I could raise it, and it could heat up, or I could heat it up myself. Like there's lots of different ways to skin a cat.
You're both missing something. You're both missing. The hypothesis is that heat causes water to boil. So you'll need. So the point is that no matter what temperature you have the water at, no matter what, let's say you're up at the top of Mount Everest, it doesn't matter. You still have to add temperature to cause the water to boil. So that's the hypothesis. Is that it won't be boiling just because you're at lower pressures. Leave me finish a second. It won't boil because you're at a lower pressure. It'll boil because you add heat at the lower pressure. You'll need less heat than you will at sea level, but you still have to add kinetic energy for that to boil.
It's already there in the earth. When you go down, it's already hotter. When you go up, it's already more voltage. It's already there.
But heat is the cause.
What about freezing it? What about freezing the water? What about freezing it until it boils?
Okay, why are you changing a simple question?
I'm not. I'm telling you, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Why are you changing nature? What about freezing the water?
Why are you over-talking me?
You want to apply the method or not?
Why are you asking me a question while I'm over answering you? You asked me a question, guy.
No, you changed the experiment.
That's right, I can, because yours is wrong. I can do different things to make water boil.
Okay, let me just say it
Right?
real simple. You're
What about
a
cold
fool right
fusion?
now for arguing
Cold
this way.
fusion. Do you believe things can be cold, freezer burnt, or not?
Listen, when I boil my tea
cold can
water,
dissipate
I
the
use
heat?
heat. I don't use
you've
cold
just moaned
fusion.
at him for talking through him when he's been asked a question. You've asked him a question, but now you're changing the question to a new question while he's trying to answer you. So he's just getting to the boiling water thing in terms of changing the phenomena to then change the hypothesis. But just let him answer. Go ahead, 10th.
I'm first of all, I'm tired of talking to a guy who can't stay on subject, and then the way he's condescending when I wasn't condescending to him at all. I mean, this is the problem with people who just can't sit down and talk just because they just don't know how to. So if you're going to
That sounded
change,
condescending to me.
forget it. You know what?
You
I
sound
see my
pretty
dog here.
condescending.
I see my dog here. He's very polite. If
Are you as
people would
smart
be
as
as
that dog?
polite as a dog.
Dude, can you just let
Well,
somebody
you
else
should be as
finish
smart as the dog, not polite. We're not looking
No,
for
he's
polite
bringing
dogs. We want IQs.
Hang on, Neil.
I don't like this. Well, let me finish real quick with him because I have no angst against him. I don't even know him.
Hold on, 10th. Eyes of Death, can you just pop yourself on mute? You're causing audio chaos. Thank you.
The first day of the year show, I have no angst against him. I don't even know who he is. I wish him good year and best of fortunes. I have nothing personal against this guy. It's just the way he goes about talking is irritating, and I don't want to talk to him anymore. It's ridiculous.
The hypothesis
I was just
is,
wondering if there's more than one way to skin a cat. How come in your hypothesis or your idea you keep saying heat only?
Yeah,
What if there's other stuff?
That's the whole
because that's the
Demok,
hypothesis.
but that's the whole point, right? You're saying, is there more than one ways to skin a cat? Well, yes, that's the point, is that you are skinning the cat. But what you were talking about before is that people are running around saying they can skin a cat, right? But they can't, but they never did. Right?
Right,
To
that's
bring it
my
back to
point.
what it is,
So if
the
you can't
hypothesis-
pinpoint the actual, thing, you're not really skinning the cat right. Just like they're not. So if there's other things you can't get your hands on and can't do to that, then you can't test it that way, can you?
Okay.
Then you can't test that science. That's what I'm saying. You can't skin that cat.
Hold on.
You can't skin that cat of water. You don't know what water is.
Okay. Both of you stop. Number one, you don't need to keep saying you can't skin in that way. You can't skin it over and over. You can't do that, Demok. It's not reasonable. We heard you the first time and we heard you the 7th time, but that meant we didn't hear anything else. Okay, we got it. Go ahead, Chocolate.
No, but I mean, basically, the analogy is what he said before. Like, I thought we came to a slight agreement, right? There are people running around with hypotheses that they are claiming is validated, right? But if it isn't, that's just pseudoscience. It hasn't been validated. It's nothing. It's just a hypothesis, right? If you don't have the experiment to validate your hypothesis, then you're just running around with a story.
Right.
I don't even see.
Yeah,
I don't even see
there-
what the contention is right now. Like,
no contention with me. I'm just saying that they're messed up every way they do anything. I just don't agree with no way science is done in any shape or form because it's all wrong.
Okay, there's where the contention lies. Okay.
Nathan,
Yeah.
Nathan, may I just say something real quick? From what I'm gathering, I
Hold
can't.
on.
Okay.
You can D-Rose, but just after Brian. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. No, Demok, I have to say this to you. You don't understand science and the scientific method. It's not done wrong. It's done correct. It's that what they've been calling science for a long time is not correct. The hypothesis is that heat causes water to boil. Not there's different ways you can do this. No, that's the hypothesis, and it's been proven that heat is the necessity for water to boil. So you can have water at 0 pressure, and it won't boil if you have 0 Kelvin. You know, it's not going to happen. You have to add heat, regardless of the pressure or anything else, for that water to boil. You must add heat. That was the hypothesis that was proven. A hypothesis is you see a natural observed phenomenon, you create a hypothesis as that you think that this thing is the cause, this natural thing is the cause of that natural thing, right? The natural thing is the cause of the natural effect, right? You test to see, right, in a very stringent way, whether what you think causes this effect or doesn't cause it. If it does cause it, your positive hypothesis has been proven. If it doesn't, then your null hypothesis has been proven. You always prove something. You don't need to go back and do it a second time. You don't need to add anything else in. It's either proven or disproven. And then you know, you have knowledge to go forward with. The only way for water to boil is by added heat. That is the only way. There is no other way.
That's not
You
true.
summarised at the start,
That's not
Brian,
true.
there. This is my point. Let's not argue the minutiae. This isn't the issue here. This is the same as when I critique Jaron with regards to his sunlight, sunburn, pseudo hypothesis, disproving science method. The way that it's being viewed isn't what Brian outlined in terms of what science is, what it's for. He's equating it and saying it should be an all-encompassing answer. It doesn't give us that. It doesn't tell us anything other than the result of the hypothesis, whether we accept or reject it. It's very, very limited. It's never, ever an explanation. And this seems to be where your objection is in terms of use of the method, that it should, because we can have pressure, because we can have this, that it should be more encompassing. As we've said, different cat to skin. Yeah, okay. But we skin one cat at a time with the scientific method. But then we can have maybe a theory, a more encompassing explanation that's backed up with experiment for each part of it. But each experiment needs to be very refined, very controlled, so we get a defined outcome of either rejection or acceptance of the hypothesis. Now, it's never going to be this answer that you seem to be reaching out for.
Did you follow all that, Demek?
I have a question.
Well, before you do, D Rose is in the queue, and I want to establish if Demek understands that by limitation of other things that can cause an event that you observe in nature, you sometimes will qualify those other things. Adam has just done so with pressure. So if you hold temperature constant, you can vary the independent variable formerly held constant in the last cat you were skinning experiment, and just vary the pressure and hold the temperature constant. But that's still adhering to the scientific method and empirically validating the outcome in either event. Either pressure when temperature held constant will not cause water to boil, or it will. But in either event, you're either going to validate the null hypothesis or validate the alternative in either event, if you vary that which you assume causes the effect. Now, if the effect that you're observing is something like a boiling hot spring, it seems absurd to assume that the cause of the effect is a variation of altitude when the thing's in the ground and it ain't moving anywhere. So the whole point of the method is to explain things that you observe in nature. Now, you could say, the effect that I'm observing in nature could be induced in other ways, but you're just trying to study why it happens in nature. If you say, well, if I take a pot of water and just shoot it up in the air, okay, but have you observed that to occur in nature? Because that's what you're trying to figure out with science. It's exclusively about the natural world and the phenomena that we find ourselves pondering in the natural world.
Well put. Well put.
Right. If Demok's not going to respond, D Rose, go ahead, and then whoever it was. Who is it that was trying to ask if they could ask a question? You next. Go ahead, D Rose.
Okay. Okay. Basically, from what you said and from what I think Brian said, pretty much summed it up. I was saying, if at the end of the day, for the empirical result, that the sole exclusive element be heat, whether what induces it, how do you create it, manifest it, agitate it to make it hotter wherever you are, high altitude, low altitude, underwater, at the Arctic wall where it's freezing cold, whether you make it -1,000 Celsius, if heat is still the common denominator element, then it goes back to the hypothesis that heat is what boils water. And if by chance that anyone can find an empirical result without using heat, you still need to go through the process, the scientific process to do so. But if nobody has done that yet, then and it goes back to heat being the sole primary cause for heat. But y'all pretty much broke it down. But I know Ademic was saying, he was like, you can't be going like Neil and Faulkner and Danley and all them talking about hypothesis, but you've never done an experiment to prove your hypothesis. All you're doing is just talking rhetoric. So
sure.
I'll land on that.
Again, outside of the purview of science is what you don't know. So if you actually look at how this was originally formulated as an example by QE for Betty, if you look at the way it was pondered between the two of them as they came to their conclusions of how it should be phrased, one of the things that was highlighted to me was the term used for the things that are held constant. The term for that is a constant variable. Now, when I first heard that, I was like, that sounds like a contradiction in terms, right? How can it be constant and variable? Well, it does make logical sense when you understand the principle behind what you're talking about. Number one, it means you understand what it is and that it is something in existence that you need to pay attention to. Now, unfortunately, within the scientific method, you can't know the variables that you don't know to control them. You don't know what they are, right? And that's always going to be a limitation. However, everything that you do know can be described, if you choose to do so, in what will be held constant, aka your constant variables. That means that they could be varied, but you will hold them constant. Now, in the hypothesis for water boiling, it's altitude being held constant because it could be varied, but it's described as at sea level or 1 atmospheric pressure, because those are qualifiers, descriptions, conventions that we have to describe how this thing that could be variable is being held constant, hence the term. But by knowing it, it means that once you've established the cause, in this case heat, you can hold heat constant. Let's say we hold it at 100 degrees C constant and vary the altitude. You can see how that will affect things. Yeah? Now, you could argue that you aren't seeing that occur in nature, but such is the way of scientific discovery. Light is another example of this, where when you answer a question in science, you more often than not open the doors to lots of other questions that you may answer or want answering. And those can also have experiments formed around the original supposition of cause and effect that's been validated. In this case, heat causes water to boil. Now, all of those subsequent experiments are what formulate the word that's abused more than anything, and that's theory. That's where you get your theory from, right? But you have to start with a validated experiment. You've got to start somewhere. And where do you start in the most simplistic terms? By having a phenomena study, obviously, and holding everything that you can account for and know of constant, but for the thing you think actually causes it. That will be varied, and only that will be varied. Now, if by happenstance, something that you didn't know about and was beyond your control was being varied, and you didn't know about it, like the pressure, because if you did this in the outdoors, there's weather. Now, if you didn't account for that to hold it constant because you didn't think, oh, maybe the weather's going to affect this hot spring I'm observing, you know, the temperature dropped a couple of degrees, but it's still boiling. Maybe it didn't occur to you that pressure has any influence on it. So you don't hold it constant. You do it in the outdoors. And it skews your results slightly, but it ultimately still yields the same result. My point is that in this instance, because you're not physically taking the experiment on a bloody elevator, it's not going to skew your test that much, that the qualified as 1 atmospheric pressure varies slightly beyond your control. You will still cause the water to boil when you apply heat in a significant enough quantity. It will still boil. Now, do you come along and go, yeah, but the weather changed slightly, so it actually boiled at 99.7. So, did it boil? Does it matter that we can ascribe a scale to this, or put a number on that scale we call, quote, boiling point? It matters not. the heat still caused the water to boil, even though something that you didn't know about, even though strictly speaking in my example, we do know about air pressure. But for the guy that first did it, let's pretend it's a caveman doing this experiment, he didn't realise that weather affects pressure, and pressure has an influence on water boiling. Now, it wouldn't matter because he just puts a flame under it and it bloody boils. So who cares? If you've got a valid hypothesis in place, which is to say you will vary the heat and see if the water boils or not, and you vary the heat and it, for la la land crazy parallel dimension, doesn't boil, you've still validated the null. Heat doesn't cause water to boil. Almost has me screwing my face of just saying it. But it doesn't matter either way. You're validating something at the end of the process. Once you've got that, you can go forth, you can do more experiments, you can then form theories, but you've got to start by varying just one thing that you suppose will cause the effect you're studying. And if it does, ka-ching, you've validated a cause and effect relationship.
Facts.
Right, is that going to be my cue to round out? Looks like it. With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams. Hope you're smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley and I will see you all in the next video.